had a friend who, for the longest time, didn't rep with them.
Good evening, good
They
people.
watch it and stuff. They just pick it up.
We're getting started with our work session of the City of Muskegon City Commission for January 10th. We are going to start with our DPW Director, Leo Evans, with regard to our Parks and Recreation 5-year plan update. Oh, first we need roll call, don't we? No?
Not normally.
Not normally for work session? Okay, well good then.
I could have used the extra minute to get ready. All right. Real quickly today, we've been working on an update to our city's 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We did a lot of work in-house with staff, and then we actually ended up contracting out some outside assistance with MC Smith to finish it up and get us over the finish line there and finish, polish it a little bit more than we were able to do ourselves. Back in December, I believe on the 18th, we posted that to our website, and that's out for 30 days for public comment, public input. There is a link in the agenda packet to get to that, where it's hosted on our website. There's also a hard copy available at DPW for anybody that would like to come see that. And then lastly, we will have a formal public hearing to take comment on that plan at our next commission meeting on the 25th, at which time we'll ask for a resolution to adopt the plan, and then it's due to the DNR by February 1st to be on file with them. And what having a plan on file with the DNR allows us to do is to make us eligible for grant applications through the Natural Resources Trust Fund and the Land and Water Conservation Fund and several other programs that the DNR offers. So it's pretty imperative that we have a plan on file and keep one on file. Last year, we did not have a plan on file. Our plan had expired. We were actually setting our budget in the midst of COVID, and we're really uncertain if we'd even be able to match a grant should we be awarded one, so it wasn't as critical. But the DNR ended up giving out like twice as much in grants as they ever had historically. So they definitely have some money available to them, and it's in our interest to get this plan in place. I'll cover a few highlights of the plan real quickly. The plan includes a park inventory, the detailed listing of all our parks, highlights 12 of our larger community parks. Think of things like Pure Marquette or Cruzy or Veterans Park. Highlights 28 of our neighborhood parks that are city-owned, like Amont, Sheldon Park, St. Joseph, and 8 non-city-owned neighborhood parks. A lot of times these are owned by a community organization, but maintained by the city, like Joe Clifford Park or the McLaughlin Neighborhood Park. One of the things they do with this plan is compare the acreage of park in the city to industry standards and determine if you've got enough acreage of park. And one of the things the plan does recommend is that we do have enough acreage of parks in those major categories that are available. Excuse me. Secondly, the plan included a public survey. We conducted the survey primarily online through SurveyMonkey. And as of when I wrote this report about a week and a half ago, I think we had 170 surveys collected. I do believe it's closed now. But there are detailed results of all those surveys in the plan, the draft plan. A few of the things I can highlight from those surveys were the top parks that people wanted to see improvements made to were the Muskegon Lakeshore Trail and Pure Marquette Park. Of the 27 individually listed parks, only 7 of the parks were noted as having a higher percentage of good or excellent responses in terms of their maintenance, whereas 20 of them were noted as having fair to poor responses. Biking trails, walking, running trails, and canoe kayak access were the top 3 requests in terms of new facilities that people would like to see added. And the spending priority for parks was geared heavily towards upgrading, improving, and maintaining the existing facilities rather than land acquisition or expanding. The plan also includes a capital improvement program. I believe it's laid out for 8 years in the draft plan. I believe it's geared kind of around spending about $1 million annually with a couple of larger projects in there for the first few years. The important thing I guess I want to stress about the CapEx plan is it's very fluid. The more important piece of that is that a park is listed in the plan. If it's listed in the plan, we can be eligible for grants. It doesn't necessarily be prescriptive that we have to do this year, we have to do this year. As you know, things will shift. Something will become more important or less important as time goes by. So that's really the highlight of it. As I mentioned, we're on track to turn this over to the DNR on February 1st, and that would make us eligible to apply for grants on April 1st of 2022. Those grants would be for the state fiscal year 23. So the earliest those would be available would be October of 2023 timeframe or later.
All right, so we will be having a public hearing on Tuesday, January 25th, and then adopted by the City Commission for submittal to the state of Michigan. In the meantime, while you're here, if commissioners have any questions or input, you can share it right now and pose those questions, or you can reserve them for the public hearing that will be happening in a couple weeks. So I will start to my left, Commissioner Ramsey, if you have any questions or input right now.
No, great job. Thank you.
Commissioner Hood?
No.
Commissioner St. Clair?
No.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Johnson. With the 7 parks that you said that were actually eligible for, I guess, development or whatever, would that be within the, I guess, the neighborhoods like Marquette, Jackson Hill, but due to the fact that some of the parks have already had some, development or whatever, will these grants still allow them to have additional
Yeah, I would say
upgrades? That's the word I was looking for.
any park that's listed in that capital plan, we would be eligible to pursue a grant for it. So while we did approve some new playground equipment for Reese and Bucama, I think we still had some things on our list at both of those sites that we weren't able to get to yet, and those parks are on the list in that capital plan. Yes, we would still be able to pursue grant opportunities for those sites as long as they're on the list.
It's a good question, Vice Mayor German. Ensuring that we're able to continue investing in some of those parks that have seen some improvements recently, but we haven't knocked off everything we want to do there. Do you have any other additional questions or info?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Emmer?
No.
No? All right. Commissioner Gorman?
Director Evans, could you speak? I did get some comments from a resident just asking and inquiring more, and I want to know more about plans for a more structured recycling and trash service in the parks, just as growing popularity and attendance to the park. I would love to know if there is a plan, if there's opportunity to plan. It sounds like this is a fluid plan, but I'd like to hear if there's been any discussions, what we can do to help.
I'm sorry, you said trash
trash management and recycling too.
Got you. I don't know that that's specifically addressed in the plan anywhere. I can't think that it is. One thing we have been engaged with is a company called Big Belly that they provide a compacting trash can that you put out. It's solar powered and compacting, so it increases the capacity from something like 30 to 50 gallons up to like 150 gallons of refuse a hold. And they also will send us a notice and say, hey, this trash can's full, come empty it, kind of thing. So it's something we're looking to pilot. They're very expensive, honestly. They make a system that has a joint trash and recycling receptacle, combined in one unit kind of thing. I believe they run about $8,000 for a combined unit, though. So they're, like I said, they're not cheap, but it's certainly something that's probably worth piloting just to see how they work and if it, could really save us expense on the back end with labor. Maybe managing some of these that don't need to be serviced as often. We can break that down a little more and focus these compacting ones in areas that get overflowed to give more capacity until we can service them.
Okay, thank you. I think we can all sympathize. We go to our beautiful parks, and just making sure we have an opportunity to manage that waste is really important. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Good question. Well said. Something to be on top of. Yes, Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that, Leo, and I would like to invite you and the office to look into some of those opportunities where we really look at addressing the recycling aspect of the trail itself. So I understand that trash is always going to be an issue. I think that $8,000 is a little steep, but If we could have a couple of things, or you could share a couple of ideas with us specifically about recycling, because as I think as we move forward and being really intentional at looking at our parks and keeping them cleaner and addressing things like climate change and the state of our lakeshore, that it's super important to our residents. So if you could put some stuff together
Yeah.
for us.
Do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. That would be welcomed information. Any other questions or input from our fellow commissioners at this time? No? Yes, Commissioner Emery.
I just want to let Director Evans know I really like that idea, and it does sound expensive, but maybe we can look around for less expensive. But I can see those, out at the beach. But there's always issues with the garbage cans overflowing out there. So
Sure.
I'm wondering if this would help keep us clean and green.
Yeah, one thing that Leo didn't bring up is that we are looking into. The cool thing about those big belly ones are they're designed to have designs on them, and so they're really meant to help pay for themselves with loss of labor, but also with like sponsoring opportunities. So we've been talking with the lumberjacks in particular about people who are coming in there, companies that are coming in there. They're trying to advertise with the jacks, but because it's so expensive, they kind of get turned away. And the thought was somebody can really sponsor one of these for a couple $100 a month, and we could then recoup the money that it costs to build them. Now,
So
that was the $4,000 ones that were just garbage. So maybe a garbage/recycling one that costs twice as much might cost $400 a month. But if you're a company and you're trying to advertise that you're, the idea of a $400 a month advertising budget is reasonable. But things that like at the arena might cost $10,000 or $15,000 a year. And so the thought is we probably have some smaller companies that have been trying to figure out how they can advertise in the community, and this could be a great way to bring them on board. And
Well, I'd be super interested too, and it'll be fun to know the data too of like they're being purposefully replenished, so we're not sending someone out on a route normally just to empty, but like you said, we'll have a signal when it's full, so they get emptied in a timely manner. But I think it'd be interesting to see what fills up, what doesn't fill up.
Yeah, I think the 4,000 is a flat out purchase number too. They do offer a lease option, so we kind of asked for a quote for that, just out of curiosity to say, maybe Pierre Marquette Park only needs those receptacles there 4 months a year, or 5 months a year, something like that. Is it cheaper for us to lease something for 5 months a year rather than purchase it outright and have it there? So that math might make a little more sense too when you look at a lease and advertising potential. So, but yeah, we will get some options back to you for those.
So, Commissioner Hood.
So what was the lease amount?
I haven't got it yet. They haven't got back to me with that yet.
Okay.
if you spread it out over the course of like the 5 year, it was quite a bit more than just buying them, but you avoided the capital expense. So it was really, in my opinion, if we have the money, we're probably going to find it makes more sense just to buy them. If we don't have the upfront and we don't want to make such a long-term commitment, we want to try it out, then leasing them probably makes a little bit of sense. But if we end up keeping them for their full life, 5 or 7 years, we'll spend quite a bit more money if we lease them versus buying them.
All right. So it sounds like there's a pretty broad support amongst the commission to further explore that at some of our parks that see the highest traffic and the most refuse. I do like the idea, not only for the data being solar powered, but also reducing potential labor costs. Personally, I'd like to see that paired with, as Commissioner Gorman mentioned, a recycling program as well. So not just about refuse management, but recycling, improving recycling options also. So Director Evans, you and I have spoken a bit about this and where we're going from here, and that this is going to be a continuous work in progress. That while we are bringing this to a public hearing later this month and then submitting it to the state, it is our new 5-year plan. It is an update that's necessary in order for us to pursue further grants for our parks, but that we would like to do a deeper dive or more comprehensive updating of our plan going forward. And so that's something that you will be looking into of how to structure that so that we have the capacity, whether internally or having to contract with a third party to provide that capacity so that we can engage our residents in a more thorough manner and, in my mind, ideally in our parks itself, meet folks where they're at. on what they like, what they don't like, what they'd like to see improved and enhanced, and so on and so forth. So that's something you are planning and pursuing subsequent to the submission of the current update.
Yes, yeah, I would say we'll get this current update done, which while it wasn't exhaustive, it is still a pretty substantial update over the previous versions that had kind of been rehashed a few times. But yes, we can definitely look into that. I would say let us get this plan in, let us get through a round of grant applications, and then probably look at that in the next fiscal year. You know, there's nothing to say we couldn't submit an updated plan a year from now if we decided we're ready and, hey, look, our 5-year plan's only a year old, but we want to update it. We could completely do that. And I think we'll try to work towards something definitely short of submitting a new one before this one's expired. So.
All right, sounds good. Thank you much. And if there are no additional questions or input at this time, then we'll move on to the next item, which is also your item, Director Evans. So we've got Pure Marquette parking revisions. And just so folks know how we're going to proceed with this, this item is on our agenda tomorrow for a formal vote. Right now, we're having a conversation, deliberation about which option to pursue and if we want to, make tweaks to those options. And so right now, what's being presented, as Director Evans will discuss, is option 1, which is reminiscent of a project proposal that was moved forward last year, and option 2, which differs, and he'll get into the detailing of how that differs. So we'll hear from the Director Evans. The commission will have an opportunity to ask questions. I do anticipate, given that the commission, the expectation is the commission is trying to find a consensus tonight on which option to proceed with so that we can vote tomorrow. I do anticipate allowing public comment during our deliberations and not reserved till the end of our meeting. And so just FYI, you will be welcome to give public comment before the commission makes kind of a deliberation on how we're proceeding or what our consensus is for tomorrow evening. So, Director Evans.
Very good. As you mentioned, we've been here before. I think it's been about 6 months since we last talked about Pure Marquette. Back today with a little bit different proposal and some additional information to go along with that. A couple of things that we had done this fall to really help solidify the need for something at this park was to get some aerial footage of the park. I believe we were able to get it, I got it in here somewhere. Was the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. I want to say around 4 to 5 in the afternoon. We had drone imagery go up, take pictures of all of the parking from Margaret Drake Elliott south to the curve, south of the filter plant. And I think I included 5 or 6 pictures in the packet. And what you'll notice from those is from Margaret Drake Elliott south to the parking lot by the Kite Shack, nearly every spot is full, or possibly every spot is full, other than maybe 1 or 2 handicap spots. We paired this also with some of the placer data that was generated for the deck, which showed an estimated 350,000 visits to the deck over the course of a period. I think it was Memorial Day till the end of September, so around 122 days. If that was evenly distributed every day, that's around 3,000, vehicles per day that kind of have that as a destination or that area in mind, which is pretty substantial when you consider the entire volume of traffic in that area is probably 10 to 12,000 cars a day. And I doubt it's distributed evenly Monday through Sunday. So with that, we have a proposal in front of us from DLZ, which is the engineering firm that did the rest of the engineering on Beach Street, that has 2 options. The proposal has 3 aspects to it. The first aspect is a new topic that we've never discussed, an expansion of the existing Ovals parking lot. This is the parking lot that's bounded between Beach Street and the Ovals. The expansion would be to the north primarily and would encompass what is the Indiana Boulevard or Indiana right-of-way into the parking lot, as well as some expansion along the outer perimeters to butt that up against Beach Street and against the Ovals parking lot, where there's currently a sand buffer between those. I think there's a rough rendering in the packet for anybody that would like to see it, but I believe that called for, if that was adopted, that's somewhere in the range of an additional 100 parking spaces in what is that most congested area. Another thing, I guess, to note about that piece is, the Indiana Boulevard section, while it's shown as parking spaces in that rendering, it's pavement. It could be used for any multitude of purposes. I know there's been discussion of chalets or more uses along that line in that area. So having the pavement there would give you an opportunity to do that in an accessible way. The second aspect of this proposal includes the pedestrian pathway. Same as before, I am still recommending a 20-foot wide concrete pathway. The difference this time is that the pathway design would continue north all the way through Margaret Drake Elliott Park. Basically, I say completing that loop, but taking that loop so it goes through the entirety of the park in this phase rather than focusing on just the southern half of it and leaving the northern piece for later. The last piece of the proposal is something that you've seen before, which is the reconstruction and expansion of the one-way parking. The difference this time is there are two options available. The first option being what we've discussed before, which would require the removal of the 11 trees. The second option being a revised design, which we've seen different versions of it before, but it would shift that one-way double angle parking closer to Beach Street, which would leave room to save the trees, but it would eliminate the potential of ever adding parking on Beach Street if we wanted to. So those are those two options there. As I mentioned, the trees, we do have an option that those can be left in place. I just wanted to point out a few things, from my seat as DPW director. It's not the most desirable, but it is certainly an alternative that can work. It eliminates the option of ever putting parking on Beach Street, so that would be gone with this proposal. It does require separating the pathway from the parking lot, which does create some accessibility issues, where if we had the pathway in the parking lot abutting the entire length, it's a little more accessible route. This would have to have access aisles between the parking and the boardwalk, not dissimilar to what the sidewalk does everywhere else now. Having a separation does create a little bit of complication for sand maintenance in the area. Gives a spot for sand to collect, gives a spot for more sand to blow into parking areas. Again, not terribly unlike what we have right now. And, there is, I'll just be blunt, that you're going to be working around these trees. While it looks like we can save them, you are working around trees that are not in the best of health. So, there is always a risk involved with that anytime that comes up. With that, I focus a little bit on talking about how this does have more connectivity. It creates a better loop of that pathway, a bigger project. I have some information about why I feel the 20-foot path is the right width for that path. There's two cost options for this engineering proposal. The first one's a little cheaper, obviously, because they can reuse a lot of their existing design if we don't move that parking. The second costs a little bit more if we want to redesign that. And I guess I would just throw out a word of caution, this project with all these extra pieces on it, is probably a $2 to $3 million project when taken in whole, which is quite a bit bigger than what we ever talked about before. So I just want everybody to be prepared for that. If we do go this route and take all these pieces, it might be something that still has to get broken down into sections of, what are we going to do first? What are we going to do second? What's most important, and those kind of things. So I guess the last thing I'll say is, even if we made a decision tomorrow, I don't believe there's any way we could get anything built prior to the season. Just by the time we do design, we get through permits, we get bids, I just don't think it's realistic to expect we would have it built by May. So earliest you would be looking to start anything would probably be fall of this year. And I think that's everything.
All right. Thank you, Director Evans. I see the red pen, so I'll start with Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you. Leo, we've all heard a little bit of feedback about the width of the walkway. 20 feet, it seems to be a huge concern. So can you talk to us about who the walkway is meant to accommodate? Is it a bike path and a walkway, or just a walkway?
The path is a bike path and a walkway. There is, I've had a lot of discussion with people about this as well. There's not a clear engineering standard that defines what this path should be that I could point to. It is something that any other guidance document I have basically says to use your engineering judgment. The one piece of, I guess engineering guidance I could find recommended a minimum width of 15 feet with 10 feet dedicated towards bikes and 5 towards pedestrians.
Absolutely not.
I feel that's a little undersized. I think it would work if you were talking about a trail that was really just going from point A to point B with not much in between. This section of trail is going to have people parking all along it, people crossing it everywhere. It doesn't really fit the feel of a trail that's just a point A to point B destination trail, right? There's going to be people crossing, people coming and going everywhere. I also go back to the sand maintenance. No matter how good of a job we do, there's always going to be sand down there. We could sweep something and then 10 minutes later it's going to have sand blown over it again. So while you build a 20-foot path, what's usable on any given moment might be much less than that. So I think having a little more buffer would make me more comfortable.
Okay, and is it going to be set up and the word isn't decorated?
Striped?
Right.
Painted?
Thank you. Is it going to be set up and striped like a bi-directional road so that there will be two clear, ways that we're going here?
There would be a line down the center, and then one half would have arrows with bike symbols on it. The other half would not have any stripes on it for pedestrians.
Oh, okay. Because I just want us to really think about how 20 feet sounds like a huge amount of space, but it's really not. If you consider the differently ableness of many of our residents, and then throw bikes and moms doing walking and things like that, that's a lot of across the way. And I just want to make sure that we can accommodate all of that, because like you said, Leo, it's not just a point A to point B. This is a walkway that people are meant to go a distance on. And there's also people that are intersecting it, getting from our increased parking to the beach itself. So thank you for that. I just wanted people to clearly understand what we were talking about and why.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Any other? Commissioner Armour?
Yeah. What is the width of a sidewalk? A normal sidewalk?
Standard city sidewalks, 5 feet.
Okay. And what is the width of the bike path that goes along Lakeshore Drive right now?
I believe it's 10 feet.
10 feet. So the sidewalk that's out at the beach right now is 5 foot.
I think it may be 6 foot, but
Maybe.
it's either 5 or 6 foot. It's in that range, yeah.
And other than, there are those occasions when somebody has to step off the sidewalk to get a bike down it or something like that. It's been fine for how many years? Many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been there. I don't know that everybody
Okay.
would say it's fine. It's definitely a busy sidewalk.
Yeah.
I think if you look at a lot of our downtown sidewalks, those are, traditionally 12 to 14 or even wider. With the amount of pedestrians they see, I think would be more considerable or more comparative to the amount of pedestrians you could see out at Beach Street and Pierre Marquette.
Yeah. I just brought those up because I wanted people to visualize it. I looked at my living room today, and my living room is 12 feet wide. And so let's add another 8 feet to it. And I could add a couple more couches into my living room. And, 20 feet is actually quite wide. How wide is our normal road?
A normal road?
Yeah, like I live on Blodgett, so it's...
Usually they're 26 feet wide.
Okay. If it wasn't so
26,
cold, I was going to...
32 if you'd measure from the back of curb to the back of curb would be
If it
acceptable.
wasn't cold today, I was going to go out and measure my road just to give me a visual. How wide is that path, that new path that's along Beach Street?
New
That's
path
right on the edge
along-
of Beach Street?
All by the roundabout?
No,
Or
yeah.
The bike lane that goes there?
The bike lane.
The bike
correct.
lane is 5 feet wide.
That little path is?
Yep.
Wow.
It narrows at the curb where the intersections are at the curb, but in general it's 5 feet wide.
Yeah, it seems narrower than that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That answers. I think we can visualize them with, or like I said, in my living room. Along here, it shows the 20 feet that goes from McKite, about there, from the south end there. And then when it hits the oval, how is the plan going to be to put a 20-foot sidewalk along the deck there?
In front of the deck, a majority of the section, the sidewalk would widen towards the beach, right? Because you got benches and trees and all sorts of other things between the sidewalk and the road that if we try to avoid those, the clearer path is out towards the beach. In front of the deck, you don't have that option. So in front of the deck, it would actually have to go towards the street. And I think it's hard to make out in that, aerial picture. You can see there is a little chicane in the route that shows it goes in towards the street a little bit in front of the deck.
Okay. So, but there are trees between the road and the deck. So,
There are.
in widening it towards the road, would that eliminate those trees?
Potentially, yes, it would.
Yeah.
We would have to have, I would need some direction on what this commission, wanted us to maintain. Is it more important to maintain that trail width and continuity, or is it more important to, keep those trees in place? So
Keep
that
trees
is definitely the area that would most potentially have an impact to trees.
Uh-huh. And then towards the north and to the driveway into the Noah property, where that little chalet is right now, widening there, it would go towards the street or the beach, the water.
I think it could go either there. I don't picture there being any trees between the sidewalk and the street there. So I would say it could go towards the street.
There is one tree.
Oh, there is one as you come
Yes,
around that curve,
yeah.
right by the Coast Guard. But I think by there you could go back out behind it. I don't think there's a restriction that there's not enough room to be behind that one maple there.
Okay, I can't think of any more right now.
All right. And,
Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner Emery and Vice Mayor German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Johnson. Director Leo, you mentioned, let's see, expansion of that oval. Now, and we're looking at parking to be put there. Approximately how many parking spots are they actually looking to be with the expansion of that oval?
I think it would create about 100 to 120 new spaces in that area,
Okay,
in that range.
and then
He's talking here.
right there, exactly. Yep, and widening the sidewalk. Now, I know one of the concerns that I've heard from residents out there, it's taking away the sand space, the beach, the sand, the sidewalk would actually take away more of the beach area, the sand area where they mostly lounge. With this expansion and widening the sidewalk, I guess with all that parking in there, you have that type of density. Would the park be able to accommodate that type of density from pedestrians and citizens? I mean, 'cause we're going to have more people down there,
Sure.
more parking and stuff down there.
Sure.
So-
I don't know that the deck could necessarily accommodate a lot more people. It seemed like they were pretty full most of the time. So I don't know that that would be an issue. I think our concern would be, is there enough bathrooms and trash receptacles out there, which we would have to address. I think one of the things we've talked about before is the addition of a second bathroom at some point to that area, probably down to the south near the roundabout to help spread that out, or maybe north near the Coast Guard station. But there's definitely a lot of demand down there for one facility. So. That would
And I
be-
guess my next question would be just like to say, for instance, if there was an event at a building, I guess by orders, you can only allow so many people at a time within that building. Does that same type of function apply to recreational use in a park?
I'm not aware of any regulations for an open space requirement
Okay.
of that nature.
All right. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner St. Clair.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I have heard from several people in the community that they have concerns that the pathway will be turned into a platform for chalets. Can you speak to that?
No intentions of ever undertaking that. I think it would be a detriment to the use of that pathway in terms of its bicycle ability and its pedestrian ability.
Okay. And then you may or may not have the answer to this. Do we know how many trees are in the park?
Not. I know there was 11 in the area that we had talked about removing at one point, but once you get north of there, I don't have a count of trees in that area.
Okay. So it's a good percentage of the trees in the main area that we would be looking at taking down.
I don't know that we would need to take down any trees for this if we elected option 2.
Option 2,
The
but
one
option
the one
one-
caveat I say is that in front of the deck where we would need to widen towards the road if we wanted to maintain a 20-foot width, there might be 1 or 2 trees there that I'm not picturing how many that would come to decide if those were trees to save and narrow the path, or if those were trees to remove and keep the path the same width.
Okay, thank you.
But certainly if you counted all the trees inside of that oval kind of dune area, there's quite a few trees in the
Right.
park proper.
I mean, where people hang out.
Oh, I gotcha.
Primarily.
Yeah.
I know that I've heard a lot of people talking about they like to go down there and sit on a blanket under the trees. And as a pasty white person myself, being in the sun is not my idea of good time. So I'm just wondering if we went with option A, would there be any shade left?
If you went with option 1,
Yeah, sorry.
there would be no trees left in that southern area. Yeah,
Alright,
we could replant some, but there would be none for the time being.
Okay, thank you.
Good right now? All right. Before we open to public comment, Commissioner Hood or Commissioner Gorman, do you have any questions at this time?
Just for clarification for the vote tomorrow, will the vote tomorrow reflect hopefully the plan we're preferring based on conversation tonight, or will both options still be a reflection and a motion tomorrow?
The idea is to find consensus tonight, to discuss, deliberate, find consensus tonight, so we know what motion
Okay.
will be made tomorrow and that we'll be voting on
Thank
tomorrow.
you. Yep. Thank you.
Any questions right now, Commissioner Hood? No. All right. In which case, I'm going to, before we dig into the question of do we move forward with option 1, option 2, what does that look like, I would like to open this up to public comment so we can hear from you before we get those deliberations underway. So if anyone in the audience would like to speak, all right, we got Mr. Weatherby. Please provide your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes to give your remarks.
Thank you. My name is Tom Weatherby. My address is 1747 Edgewater. And although I did not measure my own street, which I probably should have, Beach Street is 22 feet from white stripe to white stripe. Just so you can have a relationship of what 20 feet is Beach Street. I'm not exactly sure why we're even here tonight, because a year ago, November, in 2020, we had this discussion in these chambers, and I say this for the commissioners that weren't involved at that time. And at that time, this was standing room only. There were people standing along. There were so many people that had comments against what was being proposed down there. And at the end of that meeting, the direction was, let's eliminate the parking on Beach Street, that third row, because we felt it was too dangerous for those people backing into Beach Street. And the other directive was, we're going to save the trees. And 3 months later, all of a sudden we have working drawings, and sure enough, the third row of parking is back, and all the trees are gone. Now, I'm not sure if that instills a lot of confidence in city government when people show up for these meetings, give their opinion, and then it's just ignored. And it's not like there were only a couple people with that opinion. It was everybody in this room had that opinion that we didn't want to have parking backing onto Beach Street, and we wanted to save the trees. Now, I agree we should have some discussions on the 50-foot, or 50-foot, 20-foot walkway. It seems like 50-foot to me. But I just can't believe we're going back and even considering option 1. In my mind, that was thrown out November of 2020. And if you want to do option one, that, by the way, that's paving 47 feet into the beach from the existing sidewalk, 47 feet more into the beach. And this picture from 1986 shows the storm damage, and it was the waves took out the beach almost all the way up to the trees. So I mean, I think I've probably used up my time by now. So I'll just let other people speak and see where it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherby. Any other? Oh, sorry. All right, Mr. Olson.
Sorry, I'm going to take this mask off. I can't speak with him. And so, thank you, commissioners, new commissioners. First work session of the new city commission. It's so nice to see all of the new faces and the old faces back at it. Commissioner German, nice to have you as vice mayor. I always appreciated how you stuck up for your constituents, and I look forward to now, since I don't live in your neighborhood, being one of your constituents, because we're kind of all are now since you're the vice mayor, which is awesome. And I appreciate all your hard work always.
Can I have your name and address, please?
Yes, Derek Olson, 2016 Estes Street. I feel the same way that Tom did about the decision we made before, and so the thing that I'm happy about is that tonight we have the opportunity, and tomorrow we have the opportunity to officially scrap that old plan, which I don't think was a good one. That I believe it was a 70-foot wide paving with all the parking spots and then the 20 feet into the beach. It really, like Tom said, it's almost offensive to be back again discussing that same paving project, and I'm super happy that there's a second one, because we need to spend the money to re-engineer this plan and go with option two. There has to be a better idea, whether it's still a 20-foot wide or a 12-foot wide or a 15-foot wide bike path. Let's get the engineering done. That's gonna cause us to move forward in an option two, plan B kind of direction. And I think that enough of you appreciate the people who came in previously, and those of us who are here tonight, and our opinions as residents. I think that enough of you appreciate that we want something different than option one. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what those plans are and saving those trees. But please, 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 please save the trees. And there is a plan, and it's going to cost a little bit more. But I think we all can agree that something needs to be done. The parking needs to be repaved. Inclusivity would be nice, to be able to get a wheelchair down past the bathhouse. I mean, that's one of the things that's important to me, and it's important to a lot of people. And I would like for bikes to be able to ride down there. But I don't think that a 20-foot wide bike path is a necessity either. I've been on a lot of bike paths. I walk the Lakeshore Trail all the time, which is 12 or 14 feet, like at the widest points, and there's bikes going past and there's people walking, and it doesn't seem to get congested. And I understand what Leo's saying about sand management, but it's the beach. Like we can't make decisions about cutting down and shrinking the beach based on the fact that there's too much sand down there. Does not sound like an appropriate plan. And so thank you guys for the opportunity for us to speak during this work session, during the time when you're going to make the decision. And please, 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 as a commission, let's move forward with option two and not option one, which we were all so upset about the first time. Okay? Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. And Miss Olson. No relation, though, right?
No relation.
Kara Olson, 1568 Beach Street, and a lifelong resident of Beach Street. I have comments on two issues. Number one, the width of the strand, and number two, the trees. I lived in Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach, California for a long time, and we had a strand running along our beach. The width of that strand was 15 feet, I believe, and I'll double check that for you. And for crowds of up to 100,000 people a weekend, both walking, biking, and skateboarding, the 15 feet was adequate. Of course, there's speed limits in some areas, and some areas are required walking your wheels. Secondly, on the trees, my mother is an advanced master gardener. She points out that trees have a lifespan. So as much as we love all those trees, you have to keep in mind that they have been there for decades. And You know, if we make our decisions around saving the trees, they may very well be in their, in human terms, 90th year anyway. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Anyone else from the public wish to give input or remarks on this matter? Mr. Paletti. Welcome. Give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to give your remarks.
Hi, Mark Paletti, 3244 Thompson Avenue, and welcome all you new folks. I've already talked one time, but anyway, I like the idea of, well, do you want to get beat now or later? You know, one choice or the other. I think we should not have either of those choices. Leave well enough alone. And we've already had a fatality because we're trying to crowd so many people into our beautiful beach. And the last time I talked about the idea of being what's good for the people, not so good for the business. I heard details about the parking that the restaurant needs. I really don't care about what the restaurant needs. I think it's our beach, and it's nice to have a facility, but they've encroached on our beach already. I don't think that we really need to bend over backwards for a business that has caused a death already indirectly, their business having the increased traffic there. And then the other point is to the engineer. I ride my bike all the time, and the Tart Trail is like 8 feet. That's in Traverse City, maybe 12 feet now. So we don't need that size. And the other thing is, in front of the deck, we're talking about killing trees to go into the beach, but the deck itself is right next to the sidewalk. I mean, it used to be like this far apart. And if we push out that way, back to the road, that gets rid of all those parking spots there. So we need 20 feet everywhere else, but we don't need 20 feet in front of the restaurant. It seems a little ridiculous to me that we're willing to kill the trees and, but we're going to not widen it in front of the very place that we seem concerned about. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paletti. Anyone else? All right. We got Mrs. Olson. Welcome. Give your name and address, please, in 3 minutes for your remarks.
Jennifer Olson, 2016 Esther Street. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time, and Mr. Vice Mayor German for your dedication to the people of the city. I'm here today to address the beach parking issue. I'm frustrated that the same plan from 1 year ago is still on the table, after lots of public outcry against it. We need a new plan. Yes, something needs to be done, but the sacrifice of the beach and trees is way too much. If we're worried about parking, maybe consider a shuttle service. That would benefit other businesses around. When will the citizens stop paying for the overexpansion of the deck? The city shouldn't have to pay for their lack of parking. Other businesses don't get special treatment the way this one does. The overexpansion has just created issues for residents of the city. When are we going to put our citizens and natural resources first? We could either A, get a shuttle, or B, remove the extra expansion that's causing problems with parking. Look, we like the deck. It's a cool business, and they've done a good job bringing people to Muskegon. But this parking problem should have been addressed when they wanted to up their capacity to 1,000 people. Poor planning. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Olson. Anyone else wish to give any remarks at this time from the public? Yes, Mrs. Doody. I believe that's you. Welcome.
Welcome to the new commissioners, and congratulations to you both. You as mayor, you as vice mayor.
Thank you.
Can I have your name and address, please?
I'm sorry, Darlene DeHudy, 4356 Lake Harbor Road, Norton Shores. I guess I'm absolutely floored too that this again has come up as the same plan that it was last year. I measured the road in front of my house. It's 20 feet. So if you want to drive 2 cars down your Marquette, the pedestrian bike pathway, you can do it. That is totally ridiculous. And those trees, they should be there as long as they live. There's no reason to take them down. And there's a whole lot of different reasons that are good ones for not doing this plan. One, if the city of Muskegon has funds, they should be spending it on resiliency, what's going on with climate change. Across the entire United States, we are seeing unexpected disasters. It can happen here, and it most likely will. The entire Lake Michigan is changing. It's warming, it's rising, air temperatures are rising. That all makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference on everything. There can be toxic algae blooms. Maybe you should be thinking about putting showers for people that come out of the water. Let's just keep going because I've got 10 different things. So anyway, more people are losing their jobs. You're not going to have the staff you need to even provide for this increase in park use. The park also has had a sense of place. The sense of place is the fact that it's tranquil. It never was meant to be a circus. I don't exactly like what's been constructed out there. I think it's not at all in keeping with the grandeur of Lake Michigan and the sunsets and what people really come down there to see. The other thing is, have you thought about, and these things all should be nailed down before even, this thing gets undertaken. Who uses the park and what do they use it for? What's the density and the load that the park can withstand? What's the traffic study that area can uphold? Can emergency vehicles get in and out of there? Ambulances, fire trucks, police, to get to the local residents, to get to the drowning victims, to get to a fight that breaks out, to get to whatever. Muskegon has a rising murder rate. Why do you think that is? There's a lot of pressure on people now. They've lost their jobs, they don't have food, they don't have housing, they're homeless. Some can't even get into the park because they have to pay now. You're seeing a lot of rise in people's emotions. People go down to the park to calm down. I wouldn't overload the park. There are standards on per square feet per person in a park. We should know what that is. Is this it?
Yes.
Sorry. That's pretty much what anyway, there should be a traffic study to justify a bike lane. When I looked at the aerial photos, there was one bicycle. And that's usually what there is down there. Why can't they ride on the street? I've done it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. DeHoody. All right, before we proceed, last chance for public comment from anyone in the audience. All right, seeing none. Before we get into deliberation on which option, just provide a little bit of background about this topic and my own experience. So back in November of 2020, this was brought to the commission for a discussion. I believe it was a work session as to how would we like to proceed. We need more parking. We also need a better pathway for pedestrians as well as bicyclists. That was something that was born out of our Imagine Muskegon Lake Plan, as well as other public input or public forums as to what people would like to see for improvements at Pure Marquette. And so staff brought forward that concept to the commission. The commission said, yes, let's move forward. Come back to us with a request for engineering. But one of the things that we said at the time, November, some commissioners like, we'd like to save those trees. And so came back in December with a request for funding. I was thinking like $35,000 or something thereabouts for engineering for this parking expansion and new pathway. And at that time, most of the trees were being saved. I'm like, great, thanks so much, staff. But the biggest one was still potentially on the chopping blocks. And remember, Commissioner Emery and myself asking, can we figure out a way to save that tree too? Fast forward to March of 2021, and the engineering request and proposal being put forward to the commission was the elimination of all the trees, unfortunately, in that program, with 3 rows of parking, 1 on Beach Street and 2 angled lanes of parking closer to the beach, and then the 20-foot pathway onto the beach, which was to be made of asphalt that proposed at that time. I asked making an elected official there, Leo. I asked Director Evans to meet folks down at the beach. This was in March. It was blustery, but we had like 30 to 40 people from our community show up to that, and Director Evans was gracious enough to appear there, and he also had DPW staff staked out so people could see the impact of this expansion onto the beach. And he answered questions, gave answers and insights as to where staff was coming from with their proposal, and then it came to the commission. And the majority of the commission at that time had decided to move forward with what's close to option one, not exactly option one, but with the expanded parking, with the removal of the third lane on Beach Street, but having 2 lanes of angled parking and an additional 20-foot pathway. Then after that, with feedback, Director Evans decided to take tact on at least the material of the 20-foot wide pathway, and we were going to pursue concrete versus asphalt. Ultimately, the project did not happen last year. The city was going to piggyback onto the county contract. That did not end up happening before Memorial Day as planned and envisioned, and so the city pivoted with redirecting those resources to other parks in our city. Very much warranted investments in other parks in our city. But it did not negate that we still had to address and still need to address the situation at Pure Marquette at some point with regard to mobility, accessibility, and parking, which at certain times of the year is very much at a premium. With that risk overflowing into our residential neighborhoods as well if left unattended. So, what we're going to dig into now is how do we want to proceed with option one, which is aligns more closely with what was previously approved last year, that includes the removal of the trees. So we're going to consider option two, where we're going to maintain a sand buffer, as Director Evans referred to it, between the parking lot and a new pathway, in which case the trees could be saved and remain, and we could potentially plant more trees and have shade for both parking and the pathway. So that's what we're going to dig into. My position, as I shared with staff beforehand, and I appreciate staff bringing two different options to us, my position has not changed on this from last year, in that we should be preserving those trees and protecting those trees, have a natural median between our parking lot and our new pathway. We still can get an extra row of angled parking there, which will create new parking positions while saving our trees and improving accessibility. And I really like the addition of the concrete pathway down to the waterfront from our bathhouse as well. Yep. So I appreciate the continuous improvements on these. I will say, staff brings a technical expertise to this and a technical perspective. They had their reasons for and rationale. I think we can all understand why, even if we don't agree, we maybe understand where they're coming from in terms of why they propose X, Y, and Z in their preferred option. They bring the technical side to it. We as the commission, we bring the political. And so that's where the technical and the political meets, and we decide how to move forward with as much consensus as possible, trying to create the best outcomes for our residents. Because at the end of the day, we're here to serve our residents. So with that said, I'd like to hear from my fellow commissioners as to where you'd like to have as a starting point for this conversation as to option one or option two. And everyone's perfectly clear on what option one and option two is, right? There's no questions about that? Okay. So that's what I'd like to hear in terms of option one or option two. And we'll start with
Commissioner Ramsey.
I'm going to start on the right side this time.
Okay.
No offense, Commissioner Ramsey.
No, but I don't have a question. Who has a tape measure? You laugh all you want to. I want to see 20 damn feet.
I do out in my car.
The tiles are 12-inch, I presume.
The standing tiles are probably 2 foot.
Please forgive me, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't trying to commandeer your meeting, but I can't go forward until I know what 20 feet looks like.
I will go out to my car and grab it.
Thank you, Commissioner Emery. And while we're waiting for that, get a damn tape measure. And while we're waiting for that,
yes, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for recognizing the cement pathway that goes down further to the beach from the bathrooms. I really, really wanted that. I'm glad that you were able to make that happen, Leo. Thank you. I think that it's super important, and I don't want to correct the new mayor, but I will say that my position on this is not political, but more people-oriented. And so I think that anything that we can do like that is great.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. And in my mind, political is reflection of the people and their will, and so that's what I speak of when I talk about political.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But not everybody does. Like the word transparency. Now, and I have another question. Can't we just do this kind of a la carte? Can't we say keep the trees so that everybody keeps their sanity? We talk about if 20 feet is enough, and then we pick one of these parking gigs for the ovals, right? I mean, we can a la carte this, can't we, Leo?
Well,
Sure, certainly.
I mean, I just want to know.
Leo,
Because if
blood
one of them
pressure.
doesn't serve everything, if we could cobble something together that doesn't look like a mess, let's have that conversation, right? I mean, it's all just Legos. And I also want to say something else.
Yes.
And I probably speak for most people up here. If I don't, please someone else can say that. I am not worried about what the deck has or has not and what parking I'm offering them. These are so that people live in my neighborhood who can no longer take a bus to the beach, can get in their cars, get down there and find a space to park without going up into that neighborhood and then having to fight somebody in the street over parking in front of their house. And so parking is necessary. And of course, the services of the beach have grown, and that's great, right? Because it brings revenue, and we appreciate that. But my decisions today have nothing to do with the deck or the businesses that are there. It's about how we can get more resident space at the beach. I want to say thank you to everyone who, thank you to everyone who brought up, the can the beach accommodate? That's a valid question.
Gee.
I need you to hold that. I don't know. Do I have a smart end? That's probably a bad choice.
You do have the smart end.
Okay, start.
Wait, if you got it.
Hold the top now.
Now, I don't need to hear all this in the peanut. Put it down. So, we're talking about, here's 10 feet. Lights on one side. So, 2 pedestrians. Okay. Come here. Yeah. Come on. Does anybody have a baby stroller? No, come on. I want you to stand next to me because we're 2 full-grown men.
Wheelchair.
Okay. Like, I just want to make sure I'm not being a jerk. I need to see this in my head.
You should have came down to the beach last March when
No,
came down.
No, COVID.
Two bus street party.
No
Yes,
COVID.
it's gonna mess up my hair. Okay, so we're 2 men. Here, hold my hand. Well, because now we're a baby stroller, right? Okay, so maybe 20 feet's a little wide, Leo. Like, is that something that we can talk about? Like, maybe it's 16.
The whole commission want to come down and hold hands?
I'm serious. Like, I'm not being a jerk, but 20
Right.
feet, I'm like, I'll tell you, it's not a big deal. No, 20 feet's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Commissioner Aaron missed this exercise.
Yeah, she did.
So here's 16.
Did the doors lock behind her? She couldn't need to be let back in.
Oh, there's the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Okay, so at 16, and these are just arbitrary numbers. This is what we can just understand what it looks like. At 16, is this on Facebook?
Yes. We have returned the
So now, I want to fix. Now, 16 with a wheelchair is the smallest that I would be okay with. And the reason is because I am an advocate for people who have differently ableness and deserve to be at our beach as well. And now that the bus can't get down there, if they have another way to get down there, let's at least make it some kind of accommodating. I understand that the buffer of standing.
This is 16 right now, Teresa.
So I just want.
Mine is
Okay.
bigger than yours.
We're on Facebook. I can't respond to that right now.
almost you.
So yeah, so 20 people is really big.
Yeah.
So now we cut it down to 16 feet.
Oh.
So, but then that's another
That's 16
question.
feet right now.
Oh.
You know, I want everyone in the room to realize that bikes are bikes, that is what it is. But I want to make sure that whatever it is, people who are trying to walk, roll, or stroll, sometimes I stroll, have the space, right? None of this is personal, attacking anyone. Then have a 16-foot walkway.
You have whatever the commission would like to have.
That's what we are deciding here.
Yeah. So thank you guys for entertaining me and for letting me do this. I just think it's important to see what this looks like.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey.
Director Evans, do you have a estimate on how wide the sidewalk on Third Street was widened to recently to better accommodate wheelchair
The
accessibility?
Third Street Midtown piece?
Yeah, the Midtown
That
piece.
sidewalk is, I believe, 16 foot wide from the
Okay.
face of the business to the back of curb.
That helps a lot. And I want to say that to the commission, particularly because that's my neighborhood. There was a lot of pride in the business owners and the neighbors that, in talking about that sidewalk being widened to accommodate that. So I really want to keep that in mind as we have these conversations. I agree with Commissioner Ramsey, 20 feet, visualizing it does really help. But I do, knowing that 10 feet is dedicated bike lane, I can just speak to Midtown that it does feel very balanced to be able to walk and stroll. And those in our community that do have need different accommodations. I understand what we're hearing from other communities, but there's been a long history of those people in our city being overlooked, and this is a chance, I think, a lot of things right. And that can be a hard decision, but I just don't want us to overlook that.
I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Gorman, and thank you,
Question.
Commissioner Ramsey. Excellent point when you referenced Commissioner Ramsey about our residents in the inner city getting to the beach, because there is no public transit west of Barclay anymore, and so anybody living east of Barclay does not have Matt's bus system. Well, they can potentially get the GO and the micro transit, but standard bus is not servicing our beach or Pure Marquette anymore.
Right.
And so it is important to have sufficient parking for our residents, but also for us to consider different types of mobility to get to the beach. And so that's where our biking infrastructure is important, but also circling back with the chamber, I appreciate the chamber and Ramos Towing last year for piloting a transit program from downtown to Pure Marquette. That's something I think that I'd like the city to circle back with the chamber and explore further about how we might be able to tweak and improve that and support that, servicing the entire of our shoreline from Jackson Hill to downtown to Lakeside to Pure Marquette. But that's for a different time. But I do just want to.
Can I add though, Mayor Johnson? I mean, one other thing I wanted to mention as far as when we're looking at both of these options, I understand that it feels very permanent if we go with option 2, that we lose the potential to grow parking from option 1 in the future. But I think with any decision we're making, city planning is for generations ahead of us. We don't know what transportation of the future looks like. And speaking of those that spoke about climate change, I hope that looks like less vehicles going to the beach. So I don't know if that needs to dwell as such a negative factor in choosing against option 1. So that's just another thing I wanted to say for all of us to think about tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman and Commissioner St. Clair.
Either Commissioner Gorman or Director Evans. When you talked about the sidewalk in Midtown, are you speaking of the area in front of like Hamburger Mikey's?
Correct.
There are picnic tables taking up a large portion of that and still significant space to walk through. So I know that if that's 16 foot,
that's a lot. It's nice.
It's how big are the picnic tables? Are they 8 foot?
Yeah, 6 or 8 feet.
6
one
or
or the
8.
other.
Yeah, 6 or 8 feet of that is covered, and there's still ample space to
Good point.
to maneuver.
Well-
So
Which is,
Yes, Commissioner Ramsey.
I think that's kind of my point.
right,
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that it's not 20 feet, which I have decided is too large.
Right.
But I think that with those picnic tables there, when we think about that being the bikes, and then people can still get through. And if I bring my grandma on her walker, or someone wants to roll me down because I'm in a wheelchair, it works.
Mhm.
And I was serious about the a la carte question, so we know that we want to save the trees.
So if that's the case, if that's the consensus, then we start with option 2 and go from there. And then we start digging into the a la carte or all in total.
Right.
So do we have a consensus then that we are proceeding with option 2, and now we're going to deliberate on what all that entails, if it's a la carte or in whole. So is there, Commissioner Emery?
I want to agree with my many constituents that are out there that voiced, why are we even entertaining option 1 when we shot it down last year? So, yes, go with option 2.
Well, to be clear, the commission did approve option 1 last year.
Yeah.
We're coming back, and that's why it's necessary for the commission to give new direction or to
Okay.
stay with that option that is now evolved somewhat, but the core of option 1 is what was approved by the commission 5-2, I believe, last year. It was 4-3, but I think it's 5-2. So yeah, we're having this conversation now so that staff knows how to proceed and there's no ambiguity there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it sounds like you are
Option 2 all the way.
okay.
Well, as a starting point.
As a baseline.
Right.
Nope, someone write that down. She said all the way.
All the way, right.
Mine is still bigger than yours.
Oh, mon Dieu. Okay. Anybody, let me rephrase it this way. Anyone who's opposed to option 2 and insistent that we proceed at the baseline of option 1. No takers, no takers. All right. It's option 2.
Okay.
Oh, was there something, Commissioner?
Yeah, I just have
I don't want to hurry you. I'm sorry.
because we were here before and we voted for option 1, and that was after several community outreaches. We went to, I believe, we went out to McGrath Park. Had meetings. Was that McGrath Park? Yeah, and it was down at Smith Ryerson, and we took community input on that. Am I correct?
Not on this particular project. That was as part of the Imagine Muskegon Lake process back in 2016, 2017, so a few years prior. We had those meetings out in the public to help inform the Imagine Muskegon
So we didn't
Lake
have any
process.
meetings in the public on this.
So the only public meeting that we had outside from inside this chamber was when Leo came out to Pure Marquette Park and met with residents, and we had about 30 to 40 residents in March of last year come out to Pure Marquette to see the impact on the beach and get information directly from our professional staff and have the opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
And part of the public input that we received subsequently, even after the commission approved it, was considerable letters, I think about 100 letters, that came from the community opposing what had been approved and proceeding with the removal of the trees. And that letter wanted to save the trees and have a narrow pathway and use concrete instead of asphalt. And our staff decided to move forward with concrete
I'm good.
on its own.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. Vice Mayor German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You're just reflecting back when I got a chance to go out there to the beach and to meet with some of the residents out there. And actually got a chance to talk with Mr. Hootie at one time, and also Mr. Weatherby, if I pronounced his name correctly. You guys kind of explained some things and gave me a more vivid picture of what was happening with the expansion and that pathway, which just about everyone out there, best of my recollection, opposed that. Basically, that proposal 1 or that option 1. I think having this conversation and dialogue, it gives us a starting point with option 2. I still want public input and to have them drive this narrative along with our Director Evans. Also, again, as someone mentioned, the taxpayers definitely should have input on what goes into their community. We as a community altogether, not just everybody out there in Bluffing, but the city of Muskegon should have some say-so or what they want to see and how they want this picture to come out on what their park's going to look like or that beach is going to look like. So good points with traffic studies, looking at the parking space, and option 2, if I'm Is that a two-way, or that's just a parking space? Or that's just a pathway that we're looking at with that portion of it?
Yeah.
That's just, and the traffic will be two-way, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, under the current proposed 20-foot wide pathway would be 2 lanes.
Yeah.
One lane that would be striped for two-way bicycle traffic, and the other one would be non-striped but for pedestrian flow either way.
And that's exhibit option 2.
Yeah. Which, if I may
Go
interrupt you
ahead.
for a moment, Vice Mayor German, if it were to be reduced to 16 feet, do you still anticipate being able to have the bifurcated lanes with, two directions for bicycles on one half, and or would you do 8 feet for each, or would you do 10 feet for bikes and 6 feet for pedestrians, or would we start with it unstriped and see how it goes, and we can always add striping later?
I guess I'd have to think about that a little bit. A standard bike path is 10 foot. That is the recommended minimum width for a bike path. They do allow variances down to 8 feet of width for a bike path, but you got to meet certain criteria to do that and prove that you can't build a 10-foot path. This is all if you're following the highway standards and using federal funding. So without that, we have a little more levity to use our own judgment, I guess. So, you certainly could leave it unstriped. There's a lot of places around that do just that approach. Detroit Riverwalk is one that I looked at that, the DeQuandre Cut is an old rail line that was converted into a bike path, and that leads down to the Detroit Riverwalk, and that's just a big concrete boardwalk along the Detroit River. So, but it does serve bikes and peds, and that's unstriped as far as I know, the entire length of it.
Okay. For the engineering, so we saw the extension of the trail, the new pathway, north of the bathhouse, past the deck into Margaret Drake Elliott Park. Is the request for funding of the engineering, does that include the entirety of this project? Or are we looking, is it necessary to do the entirety of this project engineering right now? Or kind of going back to what Commissioner Ramsey was talking about, a la carte, of just engineering what we envisioned last year in terms of going up to the bathhouse, with the addition of the Ovals parking and the pathway from the bathhouse down to the beach, with us then pursuing the engineering for the second half, on the other side of the bathhouse at a later date, and determining whether it is appropriate to do 16 feet or however many feet at that time, rather than defining that right this moment on that other half.
The proposal that I have includes engineering for the entirety. It includes full design engineering and permitting for all aspects of this, and then it would need to come back here for approval of construction bids and construction engineering and those kind of things at a later date. So if we were to a la carte this and pull pieces out, that proposal would need to be modified, or it would be, if there were portions of it we didn't want to pursue, it would be a cheaper proposal for design engineering.
Okay. I don't know where my fellow commissioners are on this right now, at least with that portion north of the bathhouse, because we haven't had a whole lot of community engagement on that aspect. The agenda was published, so it's out there. We are having a public meeting right now, but there hasn't been a great deal of conversation around that piece of it, and so I'm just wondering if the commission would like to separate that, or move forward with engineering as proposed, and we're just going to have to give direction in terms of the width of that pathway. But I think you also need to have some kind of direction of are we going to encroach towards the road, or are we going to encroach towards the beach? Both have trade-offs. So
sure. I could say the northern portion of that is more expensive because we haven't surveyed any of that yet, whereas from the Ovals south to the Kite Shack was surveyed last year under that work, so that's the cheaper portion of it. How that split goes, we'd have to negotiate that out with the engineers, but it does give some, relative framework to say there's more cost in the northern piece because we have to go out and spend a couple weeks surveying it and collecting all that data to even be able to design it.
Okay, that's good to know. And thank you for bringing that to us, though, because I remember last year asking, I need to understand how this is going to continue past the bathhouse. Is this just stopping there? And it's a pathway to nowhere, so to speak. Well, I shouldn't say nowhere. It's at a beautiful Lake Michigan Park. But trying to understand conceptually, at least, how would it extend beyond there? So I appreciate that. Commissioners, what's your pleasure on this item or this aspect of that item or anything else?
Are you talking about north of the bathhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we'll have to eliminate a lot of trees along there, north of the bathhouse, and all the way to the Noah property. I have a concern because we can't. The deck is right there, so the only way to go is east. So I have concerns about eliminating any of the trees along there.
Okay. I see nodding heads from Commissioner St. Clair.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about cutting down trees.
All right. So looks like that could save some time and money right now if we separate those two, at least the northern portion. Aside from the ovals, we can do the restriping and addition of the parking inside the ovals, but at least for the extension of the pathway north of the concessions and bathhouse, we're looking to separate at least. I mean, I'm hearing from two others that's not 4, so 4 is the magic number. Yes, Commissioner Emery.
You brought up the parking in the oval. I don't like at all the additional parking along Indiana Avenue there, because our imagination, Muskegon Lake, imagined chalets there, and I think by putting parking there, that's going to put those chalets desired elsewhere, and and that's especially on the north side of the deck, north of the deck, and because there's been lots of mention about putting more chalets than the one we have there, and so that putting parking here and using this space as parking pushes towards that idea of putting chalets north of the deck. So therefore, I say no, keep it with the imagination of Muskegon Lake plan of putting chalets on Indiana there.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Emery. Another piece of a la carte, so we'll get some consensus on that in a moment. With regard to separating the northern half, is there a comfortable level with having that being done separately, engineering-wise? We're not going to be able to construct this all in one fell swoop anyhow. We're looking at engineering it, and then what is your top priority in terms of where we're going to start?
My top priority? I would love to see the path built myself.
Okay.
I think there's an immediate demand for parking, unfortunately, which has to be weighed out as well. I think the pathway offers a better amenity for the park users, but the lack of parking is a certain immediate, need as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I mean, in all reality, whatever we were going to decide today, we probably wouldn't see in fruition for like a year. So if we a la carte this potentially in the next year, whatever we move forward could still be done on that timeline ish, right? I mean,
Yeah, the plan is to do the engineering, and at the earliest, we'd start construction in the fall
Right.
of this year.
so
I would say we won't be able to
Spring.
survey until the snow melts, most likely.
Okay.
We missed our opportunity to survey this fall unless we get a melt in the weather. So we would survey in the spring. It's going to take a couple months to design it, get permits, get bids. You'd be looking at fall construction at the earliest.
Mhm.
I would ask a question for if we split this into a north and south, do you envision the north end of the first portion being at the oval junction or going all the way to the bathhouse? Because right now we have survey up to the north, or up to the junction where the ovals come back into Beach Street. I would still need to get some more survey picked up to take that all the way to the bathhouse if that's where we decided to draw that line.
Yeah. Personally, I think it would need to go to the bathhouse because we also want to do the extension from the bathhouse to our waterfront for the permanent accessibility pathway. So I presume in order to accommodate that, we would need to, go to the bathhouse. All right. So is there? How do you feel about separating them? What are your? Do you have any major concerns about separating them?
No, not at all. Like I said, we the only concern I have is when we've discussed it previously, there was concern about not having continuity in the path plan. So this tried to address that. If it's not as pressing a concern anymore, then as long as we realize there's a vision for more, we don't need to design it right now.
We at least see it conceptually of where it would continue.
Like I said, it's going to get split up regardless when it comes to be built, because I don't think we have enough financing to do it all in one fell swoop anyways.
Yeah. Which is another benefit of narrowing the pathway is saving us some costs. All right, so Commissioner Emery brought up with regard to Indiana Avenue, the fact that our Muskegon Lake Plan envisioned retail chalets or kiosks and a promenade along that stretch of Indiana Avenue, the bisector ovals. I did speak with Director Evans about this, as well as our deputy city manager and our city manager about that, because I had the same observation, is that we had envisioned something differently in our Muskegon Lake Plan. And what I heard is, a few different things I heard. One of which, if we do move forward with parking right now, that does not preclude us from doing the chalets or kiosks at a future date there. It's a matter of striping, so to speak. But I do think we need to consider, and I don't think this is reflected in the current proposal, consider utilities. So as part of this project, incorporating utilities so that we can lay the foundation, so to speak, do the legwork to accommodate future chalets or food trucks at that section. Also heard the possibility of having one lane be situated for the chalets or the kiosks and food trailers now, and keep the other lane parking for the time being, and we can expand that in the future. So there's some of the things I heard from management. I just want to share that with the commission. And Director Evans, please feel free to chime in if there's anything I missed on that conversation of that piece right there. Or if you have anything else.
No, I think that's accurate. They're shown as parking spaces in the drawing, but that's just pavement area. It's just paint, and that could be spaces that are used for chalets. A parking space is traditionally 20 feet deep, so that's more than the depth of most of our chalets. Not to go back to 20 feet again, but it's a common number around here. Sorry.
Yeah. So do any of my commissioners, we already heard from Commissioner Emery. Are there any other commissioners that have questions or input with regard to Indiana Avenue and how we should proceed for the near term with that section of Indiana Avenue? And we're talking about the Indiana Avenue, just that bisects the ovals, which is right now it's not used really for anything, right?
Right. I think there's old pavement under there that's covered in sand most of the time. It's gated on both ends, so we can drive through there in case of an emergency. And I believe there's one sidewalk along there as well.
So it wouldn't be disturbing any critical dunes. It would not be necessitating the removal of trees and vegetation. It's simply potentially reconstructing what already exists as an old road that's just otherwise unused. Commissioner Ransford.
I see the need for more parking. That's my comment.
Okay. Meaning pave the whole section, one lane, two lanes, what? Whole section?
Now we're looking at, Leo, come here. Because it's not on the thing. This one and this one. The difference is this weirdness here, right?
It's just an older drawing. Those both got put in there by mistake.
So this is what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
I like the one that is there.
At the southern end of that, I had an older version of a drawing that kind of had a point versus one that had a rounded end. So
Oh, I see.
Hate that.
got both of them in the packet by mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't know, just folks at home. There's two different, is this right? There's two different versions here. And this is the one that's being considered that has kind of the roundabout almost versus the point here. Correct, Director Evans? It's this one here?
Rounded, yes.
Rounded.
Yep.
Okay, so we can see. Not this one is what we're considering. All right.
Take it.
Everyone's there? Yeah, just throw that one.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. I just feel like we should acknowledge, though. I mean, we're talking a lot about chalets today, which I feel like is a trigger word for a lot of people in our community about this. So just for clarification, we're not talking about doing this for chalets this summer or the next summer, but again, future if we hear from our residents and the community they're demanding it. So I just feel like that clarification is very important for a lot of people watching and participating.
Certainly. And just to make sure, because I know there were some concerns about whatever pathway we put on the beach is going to be precursor to chalets on the beach. We already heard from Director Evans that that's not the intent of staff or management, and I can pretty say that there's consensus in the commission that we have no appetite for putting those chalets on the new pathway on the beach side. The question is with regard to inside the existing constructed ovals, including Indiana Avenue as envisioned in our Imagine Muskegon Lake plan, which is still, well, there was good consensus or good public input and support for that during our rounds of input gathering. It's not unanimously embraced by our community. There's some folks that do not want any chalets whatsoever at our beach, and others that are excited about them. But Commissioner Ramsey.
And chalets is not why we're here today or what we're discussing. I want to thank you, Commissioner Gorman, for bringing that up. It's the same reason that I made the comment about parking being for people who do not have access to the beach and not for the people who go to visit the deck. So I think that it's better for us as a bench to make sure to make those distinctions for people when we can, as like Commissioner Gorman said, triggered. That is a thing, and we need to make sure that people understand why we're here, because as we have conversations in the community, obviously all of us are having different conversations because we all represent different people. And I want to make sure that those differences are heard from us and are understood by the people that we're representing. I still support the parking on Indiana.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Any other input before we proceed on that? Any questions or input, Vice Mayor German?
Yeah, thank you. Just a question for Director Evans. The oval part here that's displayed, from right there, then you have, if I'm looking at this correctly, we have the Coast Guard station.
Nope,
Or is
it'd be
it right
way down
here?
at the other
Not
end.
here. The Coast Guard would be way over here.
Okay.
So
On this
this
side.
right here is where the new road takes you, and you take a left or a right to go, either left to go back around the oval or right to leave the beach.
Okay, so you're coming north this way.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the bathhouse, right?
Right. So by widening and putting parking there, again, and the concerns that I've had, would that take away any of the beach area?
Takes away what is a sand buffer between an existing road and a parking lot right now.
Okay. And approximately how much space is it taking away?
I believe that buffer is around 20 to 25 feet in most areas.
That's currently what it is now, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So, and we're looking at, once this is implemented, it would be what, less than?
Yeah, it would only be a couple feet wide, 5 feet or less probably of sand buffer.
Okay.
And maybe none in some areas.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're talking about the sand buffer inside the parking lot of the ovals?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I bet it is. It's a car depth.
Yes, that's parking right there.
It'll stay parking.
Okay.
All right. So we have consensus on moving forward with option 2, separating the northern half engineering of that pathway while moving forward with expansion of parking inside the ovals. There's only one option, not two options being considered. Unless I hear otherwise, it sounds like there's consensus for, or at least sufficient support for striping of parking inside Indiana Avenue. Question though, we have food trucks that come now periodically. Where do they set up?
There's power pedestals located inside that parking lot in a couple of those median islands. They usually have to go around those unless they bring their own generator.
Okay. And so they set up and they take up a few different parking spots.
Correct. We don't have any designated spot. We don't guarantee any spots right now. If you would like a spot, you need to get there early and hold it down. So.
Okay. And then where does the Lake Effect Sports, they had a concessions agreement. How did they operate this past
I believe she worked out of that Ovals parking lot at the north end towards Indiana. I think she got there and had her tent set up in a couple of those spaces, kind of closer to the Ovals side where that crosswalk is.
Okay. So I heard she's going to be speaking with you if she hasn't already. I know she's very much interested in returning to Pure Marquette with the concessionaire agreement. I also heard from her neighbor, Hey Sugar, would also like to operate at Pure Marquette. So it's just part of my thinking of trying to accommodate some of these type of entrepreneurial pursuits and supporting our existing local businesses and creating opportunities for others. But again, we're not precluding that from happening in the future. It would be nice if we could try to accommodate a few of them sooner than later. But as my fellow commissioners, Ramsey and Gorman, have indicated, we need parking. So, any other input, commissioners, on that piece?
I do.
Okay.
Kinda.
All right.
All right. Well, are you saying, Commissioner Ramsey, are you saying that we need parking, so therefore put the stripes on Indiana?
Yes.
Okay. If we use one part of that, one half of it for chalets, and the other, say the north side for chalets, the south side for food trucks, we would eliminate the need for food trucks and any other vendors inside the oval parking there, because we lose a lot of parking when the food trucks are there.
Yeah, we're not talking about chalets today. And the food truck thing, I completely understand, and I think it's a great idea. But in the meantime, fix it and stripe it for parking.
Well, actually, we are talking about chalets today.
We are.
It is part of this conversation of what we're envisioning for this project. Whether or not we want to follow through with the envisioned Measurement Scheme Lake Plan or just stripe it for parking. Understanding that if we do stripe it for parking does not preclude us moving forward in the future. But the question is, do we want to go forward as presented here, tweak it? And so that's what we're trying to find consensus on. And I've heard from two people one way, one person another way. And so speak up, folks. Need consensus.
But in this, why wouldn't we just say go ahead with the chalets on Indiana, rather than stripe it now and then no chalets later? I mean,
it doesn't preclude it later.
That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're saying, what I'm saying is get it striped so we can use
get started on the chalets. Why not?
So what I heard from
as part of this,
from what I heard from, if I may just give some insights, and Deputy City Manager and Mike may want to share, but what I understood is that we don't want to do all of Indiana Avenue right now for chalets and kiosks because we can't be assured that it's going to be successful. We don't want to build out something that's not necessarily going to be successful, and it'd be better to have an incremental approach if we move forward with that. Am I speaking out of turn? Good? Okay. And so that was the rationale. Like, we don't want to do this all in one fell swoop right now. If we were to move forward, it'd be better to do incrementally. Commissioner St. Clair.
So I'm thinking, even if we stripe all of Indiana, stripes aren't going to make it impossible to have food trucks. We could put out cones or tape, or if there, I'm sure that there are lots of days that it would not make sense for food trucks to come. So having that be a temporary situation where we can mark off this section because we know we're going to have a lot of people down, and on the days that there are no food trucks scheduled to be there, then people can park there. I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but stripes aren't going to keep people from using it in multiple ways. Yes,
that's correct. Yeah, we currently do that with a lot of the parking spaces that get taken up by a special event for their operations trailer or something like that. We'll go out, cone those off, block it off so they can park whatever they need to park there.
So we can have both.
Excellent point. Can we have this reflected tomorrow or when we move forward with engineering is going to anticipate having utilities to accommodate such activities in the future?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we can incorporate that. That's more involvement of consumers' energy than anybody else. I think, the issue for tomorrow will be that the proposal on the agenda reflects a broader scope than what I'm hearing is we're narrowing in on. So blankly approving that as option 2 is going to be a little bit more expansive than what you probably want. So if you want a revised proposal, that's going to take time to get together. Or if you want to, put words in your mouth, if you want to approve that proposal with XYZ amendment, we can hammer that out on the staff level.
Okay. Do you have enough information? You've heard enough. We've talked at length here. We need to move on. We still have a few more items. But have you heard enough to understand the directive of the commission and how we'd like to proceed, that you'd feel comfortable rewriting that motion, or what the recommended motion for tomorrow based on what you've heard?
I believe so.
With those amendments?
I think the only
option 2?
Yes, I could draft something for that. I think my only question would be, I don't know that, did the commission settle on a width for this pathway?
Say it. No!
I didn't want to say it, but I don't feel like I know where we're going with that. So
we know it's not 20 feet.
No, it's not 20 feet, Director
Okay,
Evans.
that's fine. You don't hurt my feelings if it's not 20. That's my recommendation to you. If you'd like different, I will take whatever you give me.
All right.
It won't hurt my feelings, I promise.
All right. So yes, we do need to get consensus on that, so there's no ambiguity on it. You know how to proceed accordingly. So, commissioners, this is, I think, the final piece. Is there anything else beyond this that you need answered on this item, Director Evans? Is this the final piece right now?
I believe so.
Okay. Whit.
16 feet. Great. Wonderful with 16 feet.
Okay.
14 feet.
Well, I think I'm going to look at Director Evans' expertise, and he's an engineer. He knows best. So I'm going to look and see what he says about that recommendation. But just one other question. What's that?
His recommendation currently is 20 feet.
Well,
going with 20 feet.
Well, if he says 20 feet, I think that's what we should go with.
All right. And you had something else to share, though?
No. This spot here that we're looking at with the parking, that's right in front of the deck, right? In that area.
Further down, this is the deck over here.
Okay. But this is
The bathhouse.
Oh, okay. Back by the bathhouse. Okay. And the deck is okay.
You good?
And what would 20 feet give us, Director Evans, opposed to the 16 feet?
If we striped it, it would give you a 10-foot dedicated bike lane and a 10-foot dedicated pedestrian sidewalk right next to each other.
And with most beaches, is that something that's more common in today's time? I know I visit quite a few of them.
I couldn't find a good example of a beach that has a bike path that runs right along the beach next to, a pedestrian boardwalk. So I had truly struggled to find a comparable example to what this would be, especially when you factor in all the parking being on one side, everybody having to cross this path or walk up and down it for the bathrooms. It really doesn't equate well to any of the examples I could find. So,
yeah. And I will share in terms of one of the examples included in the packet. One of the observations I had was there was a pathway at Michigan State University, and the student population of MSU is greater than the entire population of the city of Muskegon. So I didn't necessarily see it as a comparable apples-to-apples comparison, and I heard that from a number of residents as well. So just wanted to share that. So right now we're at 16, 14, 20. Commissioner St. Clair.
I would be fine with 16.
Okay. Commissioner Hood.
I'm gonna go with Vice Mayor German and the director with 20.
Commissioner Ramsey, you're sticking with 16?
I'm sticking with 16, and I want to see it striped.
All right. So consensus is 16.
Good.
And the striping is something we can decide later. I'd be curious to see how it goes without striping it at first, and we can add.
The only reason I say that is because whenever I go to Detroit, I run exactly what Leo is talking about right there on the Riverwalk.
Actually, no, I completely agree with you, because people, if walking, they can walk right into the bike lane if need be.
Right.
And they don't see any oncoming bicyclists. So I agree with you on separating the striping separations of the biking from the pedestrian.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah, it very much is. I agree with you, Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Director Evans.
Appreciate it. Thank
you. Yay.
Director Evans.
How long did that take?
So now we're on to, hey, but we've got fairly decent consensus. Yeah, right?
That was
This is actually
They average out to 18 or 16.
So, ARPA strategy, city manager, Frank Peterson. Deputy city manager is going to lead out on this.
We do have some guests here that are going to be speaking on the next item, and I would be happy to wait and do mine after they're done, if that works for you guys.
Yeah, that works fine by me. Thank you for being so gracious.
Thank you, Leanne.
Maybe we should have put them in the beginning. Hindsight's 2020. Director Ercombe, you want to lead out on 1095 3rd Street RFP?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So, as mentioned in the agenda item cover sheet, several months ago we issued a request for proposals for 1095 3rd Street, which is the former Catholic Charities Service Building. That building is a long-standing early 20s construction building that started as a furniture store and warehouse and then had several iterations for other commercial businesses before being utilized as a nonprofit and leased office space. Just as a little background, it's been a while since we've chatted about it. So it currently sits vacant. Our property maintenance team here at City Hall maintains it for us, keeps the utilities running and all that good stuff, checks it for, good order. And so we've been waiting for responses. We had 3 developers that sent due diligence teams through the building and surveyed the property, checked it out, and we only ended up having 1 that responded. So they are here this evening, Suburban Property LLC's principal, Mr. Sean Burkett, and a representative from Earhart Construction, who you're familiar with because they're doing the 881st Street building. They're working with a senior living facility that is looking at infilling downtown. They've also recently been working on the Frohenthal with some much needed updates and improvements. So they're well standing here. Yeah. So just wanted to take tonight to kind of go over the floor plan proposed. I'm excited about it because it's infilling of residential units, which we sorely need, and it offers some unit types that we don't have a ton of in the downtown multifamily space at present, so that's good. If you turn to page 30 on the actually, hang on one second. I'd like to start at page 28 in the packet. So if you scroll, I guess in your case, to page 28. 28 and 29 are an overview of the total site plan. So I want to highlight that it's not only the building rehab that is proposed for this development, it's actually some new construction as well. It's a multi-phase development. The first phase would include infilling of 47 apartments and adaptive reuse of the existing Catholic Charities building. That would be residential units on all 3 levels. It's important to note that this would feature garden level units, which we don't have much of in the city, which is exciting for me because in other Midwestern cities there's a lot more diversity of housing types than what we have here. Opens up some opportunities. They do some interesting things in the architecture with creating some light wells along the sidewalk and along the parking lot side. And then additionally, I've had some conversations with the developer proposing this project, and we would actually propose combining the rehab of the building with the construction of the townhomes into a single phase as opposed to multiple phases. That would allow for some new construction infill as well. We also have had some other already preliminary design changes that they've been very receptive to. So they've been good to work with so far as we kind of move this forward. And then the final phase would be either a 3 or 4 story building mixed use that would sit on the corner of Muskegon and 3rd, where there's currently a vacant parking lot. So that would be the total development plan. If you scroll down a little further, you can actually see the proposed floor plans. The units to be determined on pages 30 and 31, that's the basement plan with the garden units. I believe the reason it says to be determined, maybe Mr. Burkett can speak to that, is because there was some potential to put some commercial in that garden level at one point. Oh, and allowing for zoning. Yep, and then, right, and then so allowing for the appropriate zoning variance to put the light well in to make sure that there was egress and natural light into those units as well. So those were things that we would figure out during the development agreement phase of the project.
And that's running along 3rd Street?
Yes, 3rd, and then it actually slightly turns the corner onto Houston as well.
Okay.
So as you can see, the floor plans are pretty competitive with what we have existing. So I like that there are included a few studios. We don't have a ton of studio options for kind of that micro living crowd. And then there's also some smaller one bedrooms up to some mid-size one bedrooms that range from 540 to 760 square feet. These would be roughly market rate rents. So they would be, as an example, slightly less expensive than the Amazon's recently refurbished units, and around the same range, or a little about $100 to $150 more than what you would see at Glen Oaks, Muskegon townhomes, places like that. So for a one bedroom, we're probably looking somewhere in the $850 plus minus range, up to $1,000 plus minus range for units with bigger amenities. So, which is effectively what the market rate in Muskegon is at this point. Then similarly, the two bedrooms would be slightly more. I do want to direct your attention to the Integrated Architecture's proposed conceptual rendering on the 36th page, 36 and 37. It actually restores some semblance of the original windows to that building. So the windows used to be a two-story showroom, and it had plate windows wraparound. It's covered with stucco right now, so their proposal is to remove that stucco facade, try to restore a brick facade, and then also do some semblance of the former windows, along with some very heavy landscaping and streetscaping to kind of create a nice aesthetic along the building street wall. So really what I wanted to do tonight is have an opportunity for you to ask any questions, because we would be asking for a vote tomorrow to designate this developer the preferred developer per the RFP process, where we would start to negotiate a development agreement and bring that back for final approval at a later date.
Thank you, Director Ekbom, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight and being patient. And more importantly, thank you for submitting your proposal and considering investing in our great city. So, commissioners, we just heard from Director Evans. Do you have any questions or feedback in regards to RFP? I see Commissioner Gorman.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for coming. I specifically, Mr. Burkett, was so excited to see your resume of other developments in the area and commitment to our community. And if we're moving forward, I'd love to invite you to the Nelson Neighborhood Association meeting, as this is in our neighborhood. It's blocks away from my home. I think our members of that association would be really excited to hear your plans and give you any input they have, but I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Any questions or input from the bench? Yes, Commissioner Ramsey.
Send to your cell phone. Jake, as I understand it, these are all market rate rentals, correct?
They are.
So, as a city, in areas like we're currently talking about, specifically that 3rd Street corridor, we know that we don't have a lot of available market rate places right now, other than those that were just put in or that we're looking to approve and build. What are we doing to address the need for more affordable housing for some of the residents that already live there that may not want to leave that neighborhood but want to move on to a different situation?
So move on to a different situation in the sense of going from single family to multifamily, or downsizing, or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
All of those things.
Sure. Yep. So any housing strategy that we propose as a city from a staffing perspective, just to prepare the commission, will lean heavily into low-income housing tax credit, multifamily housing developments. The reason being that they are simply the most effective and readily available housing unit structure for folks that are income constrained, especially ALICE families. We're going to need to make that a part of our housing spectrum. If you'll recall the 2019 multifamily housing study that we completed, it really showed that working age LIHTC housing is that, and then market rate are the two biggest things we're missing. We kind of had a pretty good stock of existing multifamily that is predominantly on the east side of the city, that is quite aged and is a little bit more cost controlled, but even those are going up substantially. I mean, one bedrooms at some of the places that are on the east side are approaching $900, in some cases over $900, which is, I never really thought I'd see that, to be quite frank. So for the Nelson neighborhood and our other urban core neighborhoods right here around the more commercial corridors, those LIHTC developments, and those can be different creative types. You know, we want to see LIHTC townhomes. I'd love to see scattered site and singular, duplex townhome or duplex LIHTCs. We have to work with the state a little bit to get those to be approved. Those are going to continue to be a part of our housing landscape for folks that are income constrained and maybe can't necessarily afford a market rate unit.
Great, thank you.
Follow? Yes, Vice Mayor German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Johnson. And back to your comment, um, Mr. Eckham, you said working with the state to try to get those houses where, or those apartments where they are affordable. Do, for this project, what type of conversations have you had, or have the developers had to implement that type of strategy where we can have affordable, maybe you're looking at 47 apartments from what I understand, maybe even 10 affordable apartments. And what type of AMI are you using? Or are they using that formula?
Sure. So I want to make it really clear that LIHTC developments in the state of Michigan and every state that I'm aware of that I've taken a look at are quite competitive, and the market for those is mostly dominated by large nonprofit housing corporations that in some cases have well over 100 apartment complexes all over the Midwest, all over the country. If you look at the Midwest specifically, a lot of them are based in Indianapolis or Chicago, and they have staff that know how to score site selections and build out the perfect build out to score the best with every state housing authority in the Midwest. So that's kind of who we're up against. I hate to put it that way, but that's who gets the lion's share of low income housing federal tax credits because they know how to do it. It's a very competitive and frankly money driven process, just like any other piece of the housing industry. So for a developer that is, small to mid-size to try to achieve those federal tax credits, it's very difficult because they're up against folks that's all they do, and they have dozens of staff members that work on it full time. So now that being said, any market rate development, especially like this where it's a rehab and it's going to run into all kinds of surprises as we open up that old building and kind of see what's in there, those margins are already typically very thin. It's difficult to get financing for them because the rents here in Muskegon, while they are going up exponentially, far beyond what we would like to see, given the fact of the shortage of units and it's pricing people out, they're still actually below the averages for the region. And so as shocking as expensive as our rents are, if you go to some other cities, they're more. It creates a lot of challenges to get banks to finance projects. If you commit to saying, okay, well, I'm going to hold 10 units of my 47 for folks that are 60% AMI, so that means I'm going to bring my rents down on those from $900 to $600 or whatever. I'm making up numbers, but hypothetically speaking, it makes it much more difficult to achieve the necessary financing to get a bank to lend on that project. So that's where we run into problems trying to just create or spin from whole cloth an affordable housing situation outside of some sort of incentive process like a federal tax credit. So the bigger point I'm trying to make is you have to almost look at the housing infill market that we do and the housing infill efforts that we do in the city and in our community in a bifurcated way. You have to look at market rate, which there's capacity and shortage of, and you have to look at incentivized, affordable, subsidized housing, which there's a big market for. So it's not either or, it's both, is my point.
Yeah. You almost kind of want to, I guess, look at the financial institutions equal opportunity, how, and who's the makeup of the community when they do these projects. We should have some conversations and started holding them accountable. I think the city does a lot of business with these financial institutions, and taxpayers are definitely, investors in their communities. But when it comes to these type of projects or these scales of projects, the people are priced out and pushed out, and that's always been a huge concern of mine when it comes to affordable housing or not being able to live in that type of housing. So.
Yeah, we definitely share that concern, Commissioner. And I would also point out not just the financial institutions and maybe not even solely them, but more so, it's really the state's housing development authority that needs to be worked with. And we've been making efforts to do that for several years in the economic development department and the planning office to try to get them to change the way they score these developments to hand out tax credits. So, I brought up the interest in having like what we call scattered site, where a developer comes in and is like, as we've seen, like I want to build 25 houses or I want to build 40 houses, and they want to put them in all over a neighborhood. and make them affordable and get those tax credits the same way I would say, well, I want to build a 40-unit apartment building and I'm going to have it in one spot. I'm going to score much better with the state, and I'm going to get those tax credits. That guy who wants to build 40 houses is not. So there's some structures and some institutions at the state level that need to change in order for us to be more competitive with putting different modes of housing at that affordable price point. Yeah. We kind of are playing the game on the field we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to talk with you more about that too when you get a chance and give me a better insight and how that works.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yep.
Anyone else have questions or input for Director Echolm? All right. If Mr. Burkett, if you wouldn't mind coming up and introducing yourself and just giving some remarks about your project and your background, that'd be welcome. That way, tomorrow night we can just keep it on the consent and approve it. But
sure. As Mr. Echolm said, Sean Burkett from Suburban Property. Bought our first piece of property here in Muskegon about 10 years ago. I'm from Grand Rapids area and kind of fell in love with the town back then. I've been working with Jake now for a couple of years to try and find the right project and looked at a lot of different stuff. And when we found this one, we kind of knew this was the one. So unfortunately, Mike from Integrated Architecture wasn't able to be here tonight. He's the one that did the awesome rendering and the awesome design so far on the building that we've seen. You know, one of the things that Jake and I kind of talked about a little bit today, the advent of more townhomes in the parking lot area, which I think is a great idea. I think when we were doing the renderings early on, I think Mike at Integrated wanted to keep that drive lane there, but I think it makes a lot of sense to increase the density. If that's what you guys want, I think it makes sense. So.
yeah, I think staff would welcome that, and
Yeah.
I personally would welcome that. I see Commissioner Ramsey nodding his head. Yeah, they'll be welcome to have more continuity and density along Houston right there.
Yeah, and we spent most of our time really trying to understand the existing building, honestly, than the townhome portion of it, because the existing building has a lot more variables and pitfalls and that kind of thing. So that was really where our time was spent in the beginning. So, yeah, obviously, if you guys would like to see more townhomes, we're all for it.
Excellent. Yeah, I like the variety of housing options that you've been presented with this project,
Agreed.
both with the reuse of the existing building, the townhouses on Houston, as well as a mixed-use project right there on the corner of Muskegon and 3rd Street.
Yeah, it seems as though the townhouses are working well for you guys.
So you mentioned Mike. That's Mr. Corby?
Correct, yes.
All right. So I see he's LEED certified for designer. So is this project going to be designed with sustainability in mind? And do you anticipate seeking any LEED certification as part of the development for any portion of it?
At this point, I don't know that we've gone down that path.
Okay. Still to be determined, but it was designed by Mr. Corby? Okay. Have you, in your other projects that you worked on, have you ever had any experience working with like local schools on internship programs where you can have students earning a wage while earning school credit, while gaining skill sets and trades and kind of career exploration? Have you had any experience with that?
I have not. Have you guys as the contractors?
You do in Grand Rapids. So it'd be something you'd be comfortable exploring with our local school system on pursuing with this project? All right. Excellent. We'll get you in touch with the appropriate people with Muskegon Community Education Center. Did I see your hand over there, Commissioner Ramsey?
Nope.
No? Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Is there any questions or input on what we have the developer here? Vice Mayor German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Johnson. As to working local, when it comes to like local contractors or small contractors, would you be open to working with local contractors here in the city of Muskegon? Also, and are you EEOC compliant as well? When it comes to equal opportunity. Yeah, okay. And I guess when this happens, how should they contact you? Will it be ads, or will you advertise this or let people know?
I'm Ryan Formsman with Earhart Construction. Yeah, the plan would be to definitely have local contractors bid on the project. and take a look at it. That would be our intent.
Right.
So it'd be something where they can submit an application to our office to become a qualified contractor to work for us, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned already, Jake mentioned we're doing a bunch of work in the Frauenthal Center. We've been doing that for the last few years, and
that's great.
Several different projects that we're.
That sounds good, and it's good that you're open to welcoming local contractors and the option to work with the school system as well. That's something that we had when I was in high school. We had vocational training and programs. That's something you don't see in the schools a lot today. And
no, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Last weekend I was doing a project with my son who's 14, and I said, when I started in this business working with Dad, I was able to work in the field at 14. Now I can't let anybody work with me until I'm 18 because of So I learned how to build things. And,
all right, great.
We'll figure something out.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else from the Dyers, all right, then thank you, Mr. Formsa and Mr. Burkett. I appreciate your ongoing work in our city of Muskegon and interest in investing further in this great city. So thank you so much. All right. So next up, ARPA strategy with Deputy City Manager Leanne Mikesell. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to see you all. I, at some point, may lean on Frank a little bit and also on Pete, partly because they have been able to dig in a little further into the final rule that we very recently received, and I haven't had the opportunity to do so. So really, we just wanted to start the conversation with you about how we develop a strategy for spending the federal funds that we've received. So, this is, of course, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us, and we want to make sure that we do it the best way that we can, and that we use these funds to better our community in a sustainable way for us. So, you've already heard a fair amount about this. Those of you that are new maybe have not seen the proposal or the presentation that Frank did. Sorry, the city manager did. I should be more formal. My illustrious boss. On the community survey that was done, we can certainly make that available to the new commissioners if you haven't seen it yet. So you've certainly seen that. We use that as a basis and put together a team that represents all of the divisions in the city and ask them to review the information from the summary. Actually, Director Wills, I don't call him that very often, sorry, took on the large task of looking through all of the responses to our community survey and finding themes that went through that and shared that with the group. So everybody had that at their fingertips. We also made sure that they had the commission goals that were set last spring and asked them to use those as a basis for coming together and further developing a list of projects that could be undertaken with the ARPA funding. So we went through that process and realized, of course, we have far more projects than we can fund. And so we really do need a strategy for evaluating the projects as well. We originally started with kind of a initial screening, and there were two items that made the most sense as an initial screening. We wanted to test each project against the Treasury rules, because if it didn't meet, then it wasn't going to get funded. And then making sure that ARPA was the best funding source. We know that there are going to be additional funding sources outside of ARPA and within ARPA, because the state is already telling us about certain programs that are going to be available. Director Wills has also signed us up for something through the National League of Cities, where we're going to get more one-on-one help with how best to spend these, and given some instruction on how best to go after additional funds. So we know that we've been allotted our $22-ish million, and we know that there's additional funding that we can seek. And so when we are making decisions about how to spend the 22-ish million, we want to make sure that that is the best place for that money to go. You know, we also expect that there will be guidance for an infrastructure bill, and you know, we know that there's more to come. So
as much of it as possible.
Exactly. Of course, we're going to do our best to get as much of it as we possibly can, because we love Muskegon and we want to make it as good as it can be.
And you have a good track record too.
Thanks.
Capturing grants.
Yes, in large part due to Mr. Wills. So anyway, that was our idea for an initial screening process. And then we had some other evaluation criteria that we were considering. You know, community impact has been very important to us. We want to make sure that this money gets spent in a way that, you know, is recognizable. We want to make sure that we have community support for all of these, that we're looking at the quality of life of people that live, work, and visit here. And we want to, you know, to kind of additionally help with the Treasury rules, make sure that it is addressing impacts from COVID. So those are the things that we have been discussing related to the projects themselves and how to evaluate them. We're very interested to hear your thoughts on that criteria, if there are additional criteria that you think make sense for us. And then we are also spending some time talking about communication. How do we continue communication with the general public about this? How do we give information to them? How do we receive information from them? And what are the ways that we can do that? And then also talking about how best do we communicate the information with all of you to make sure that you're kept informed. So we have some ideas, and I can go through a little bit more of the detail of what we've discussed. I'm happy to hear what you think so far about what we're doing. Certainly want to take any input you have. One last thing to mention before you all start throwing ideas at me. We do have a goal setting session that will be coming up shortly with all of you, and that could be another good time for us to sit down together and have dialogue about this topic. We'll certainly need to cover goals as well, but this could fit in really well with that conversation too. So happy to have input on developing that for all of you as well.
All right. We'll start with Commissioner Ramsey and Ms. Rick Dent.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Director Mike Sell. No, that's not it anymore.
Deputy.
Deputy Manager Mike Sell. I was
Feel
trying
like
to be more professional, even though it's a work session.
I need a badge.
Right. Yeah. Big one. I'm appreciative about hearing you make the distinction between these opportunities for us to spend these dollars and them being pertinent to the ARPA grant, and that they meet the guidelines and the requirements set forth by the funders, so that we are never out of step with those funders, because they are typically our funders. I also am excited about hearing you talk about other qualifiers or quantifiers that we could use for choosing how we spend the money. And one of those is that we never want to give someone money to do a project that they could get from somewhere else, right? We want to make sure that there's an opportunity for that. We also want to make sure that if we're funding local agencies and or organizations for specific things that aren't laid out within our city plan, that they're leveraging some of their own interests. And that doesn't mean that they have to come up with their own money, because if you don't have any money, you don't have any money. But how are they leveraging other grants and dollars that they're receiving from other sources? I would encourage you heavily to reach out to Janelle Mayer at the Community Foundation of Muskegon County and ask her how they set up their RFPs and their inquisitory documents for grant applications. And I don't know, that's the language that's going to work with her. when you ask her to do that, I'm not sure what we're going to call it here, and that's okay. But there are some great opportunities there. I think that what you're doing right now by recognizing the need for these things is amazing. You and the team, great job. And talking about how we continue to engage, because we know that, and it started with Onita, with Director Bailey, when she was doing the
CARES Act.
the blow up of that CARES Act survey that really went well. You know, we congratulated, but we also were able to recognize that there were still opportunities left and how we engage. And as we move back into another COVID crisis period, we have to look at that as well, right? That's not going to make it easier for anyone. So thank you for seeing and recognizing the need there. And I think that you have to have something to sell before you can try to sell it to people. So I think if we were to start now with how we quantify and qualify these dollars and where they can go and what they're available for, and then we use our goal setting session to work into, as a group, especially with these new voices, how we engage in ways that maybe we haven't tried before. I think that's a great place to start. We're not putting the cart before the horse, and it's also not overwhelming to your team, because we have to have something to sell. And unless we know what that is, we don't know how to market it. That's
Great input, Commissioner Ramsey. Commissioner Hood, do you have anything to add or ask?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Clair?
I would just like to address, you spoke about building a cohesive communication strategy, and I can't emphasize how much I love that idea. That's something that while I was out campaigning, I heard repeatedly, like, we don't know how to talk to the city. They don't hear us. We don't know how to give feedback. And I think that there needs to be room for everybody at the table. And this is a really great opportunity to build something that's sustainable and allows people to have their voices heard and to get their needs met. And I'm very excited about that.
Happy to have ideas on that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. And Vice Mayor German?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thanks. We're off to a good start. New year. I concur with Commissioner St. Clair when it comes to community input and engagement, having people at the table, something to advocate for all the time. And I know you guys are working hard there and finding ways, and I commend you all for the work that you do and being open to the public. I think this is great. I don't know all of the logistics about how these dollars will be allocated or used, but just some ideas. And if this is something that can help those in need when it comes to funding. I always stress about the need for more funding, like for the CDBG block grant funding, senior millage. We build all these new homes and these nice apartments, for at market rate, but you have taxpayers that's been committed to paying taxes, working. Now, some of the senior citizens are on a fixed income, and they just can't get that type of funding or a loan to maybe put a roof on their house. So I think we should look at other programs, like maybe a window program, because sometimes when houses get old and they need windows replaced, that would be something that would be very beneficial to senior citizens and people in the community who have to keep their homes up to code, and also have a good quality of life, saving heat, energy, and all of that. There's a lot of benefits to that. Grant programs are for upcoming nonprofit organizations who's trying to get started in the community. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. I talk to people all the time about starting businesses. Maybe dollars can be allocated in that way to just kind of help those who are trying to start and get to a point where they can make a difference in the community as well. So just to touch on a couple of things. I don't know if you could use those dollars for that, but that comes to mind when we talk about how we could better serve the community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. Commissioner Emery, do you have anything to add or ask at this time?
I do not, except thank you for being open to our community and listening to them and what they desire to do. So thank you.
Commissioner Gorman.
I have some ideas. And actually, just listening to the Vice Mayor speak, when we're talking about communication plans, I think it'd be interesting to know moving forward as grant money is awarded to communicate opportunities in our community that have not been awarded. Recognizing that a lot of our nonprofits run on very lean staff that don't always have the time to research grant opportunities, but if they're hearing from the city, hey, we haven't awarded housing projects there or whatever, and you're a nonprofit that does that, maybe that it helps assist them to know that there's an opportunity, and that I feel like we can be better stewards of that money to make sure we're making a great effort to make sure that those nonprofits in our community know that those exist. The other thing we could talk about further that I just wanted to throw out there is I think it'd be valuable to have a visual kind of progress bar of what has been granted, again, as a tool for those that don't have time to look through all the budgets. Just visually for our community to know we have granted this much of our 22 million. Again, just quick understanding. And then the last thing, just as we're seeing opportunities come before commission for approval, I just want to make sure I'm really clear so I can speak to our residents what the deliverables of that grant is. So it's not that anybody's getting a gift and we never hear from again. I want to know that we're going to hear from them. We're going to know 5 years out that whatever we granted was definitely fulfilled, and that we can move on from that. So those are just my ideas for now. And I'm very much looking forward to helping with this process.
Great ideas. Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. Much appreciated. And ditto. I would like to see a financial dashboard that's reflecting how we're allocating the resources and as they're being drawn down and spent, how they're being spent and when they're being spent. That could be helpful just in terms of transparency and making sure our residents are aware of that. Personally, so I realize that we're using our funds already in a number of different ways that align with existing goals from prior years and commissions, and also we're using it strategically. Some of the ideas that I've heard from our manager and staff is how do we make strategic investments that's going to benefit our city for the long term. This is a lump sum of money rather than just spending it now. I don't want to say with abandon, but spending it, without that foresight to the future. So we're trying to get the greatest bang, continuous bang for our buck. And so I think that's really, really important. But I also recognize that I don't personally think all of this money should be used for long-term strategic goals, that we should also be identifying what portion should be used towards more near-term, immediate financial relief for our residents or pandemic support. These dollars are not meant solely or restrictively to responding to the pandemic and providing relief to residents specifically, but they can be used for that. It's both providing the near-term relief and support while also allowing communities to invest for the long term for that recovery. That's what that's right in the Act, right? The American Recovery Plan Act. So I like the direction that we're going in that regard of balancing them. I think it's a great idea, Commissioner Ramsey, in terms of enlisting the Community Foundation to help us, vet and process those requests from our community and what metrics they use. So sounds like staff is already going down a pretty good road, and we're going to revisit this as a commission in our goal setting session to help reinforce where we're going with these dollars. So have you heard what you want to hear, at least for tonight, knowing that we're going to have a continuous conversation at the goal setting, or is there anything specific questions that you still would like answered by the commission, Deputy Manager?
I would like some, and it doesn't have to be right this minute, but maybe between now and the goal setting and at the goal setting session, your thoughts on the criteria that we're considering, your thoughts on how best to communicate with the public. We've talked about, what additional input do we need from the public? What needs to be added to our project list? What additional criteria would the public support? What items that we're proposing do have community support? What do we share? When do we share it? What format do we use? We've done some online surveys and that was helpful. And then, we noticed that we didn't get enough from certain areas. And so we went out with paper surveys at the National Night Out. I think that was really helpful. Getting input from all of you on other ways that we can do more outreach so that we do get more people involved. Sometimes we have a room full and sometimes we don't have very many people. And that happens when we schedule public meetings too. And, we want to, if you've got ideas on how to reach the public so that we can actually get them to the meeting. I know the city clerk and I have talked before about different ways to entice people to come to meetings. And so, we've got some ideas. I'm happy to have more because the more ideas, the better we're going to do. And we've got online forums we can use and those kinds of things. We can go to neighborhood meetings. We can use the neighborhood associations. But, what are we missing that we haven't tried before that, could be helpful? So I'd really love to have all of your ideas on those kinds of things. And we have talked about trying to have like a web page just for ARPA and some sort of a dashboard or something. So it sounds like a number of you think that's a good idea. So we can talk about the best ways to do that too.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your ongoing efforts and being receptive to input from the community as well as our commissioners on how to use those resources. Speaking of goal setting, just a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to be doing our goal setting probably the next month or so. One question that I want to get answered at least tonight is whether commissioners are comfortable with having a goal setting on a Saturday, or do we want to say, no, absolutely not, we're not doing Saturday goal settings, we're going to only look at weekdays. So I would like to get that answered tonight so staff can figure out how to proceed and coordinate, facilitate that. So yay or nay on Saturday goal setting, commissioners? Nay from Commissioner Hood. Any other input?
Nay.
Commissioner German, that's a nay.
I'm a yay. And I will say I can accommodate a weekday schedule, but I think there's huge value in no one rushing from a meeting, no one rushing to come back to work, and one day out of the year on the weekend together to do this job.
I'm fine with anything.
Open to Saturday.
Same.
Henry, open.
Open.
Okay. I'm open to it as well.
Always.
But that does not necessarily mean it is going to be a Saturday,
right,
but I just wanted to at least let staff know where commission stands, that there's a receptiveness to potentially having it on a Saturday. But I understand we're looking at enlisting potentially Lou Bender as a facilitator, so staff will confer with him on his schedule.
We're not right here. If you want me just to say them, or I can email it out to everybody and then give me their.
But yeah, just email it out and ask for people's feedback on what dates work for them and what don't work for you, so we can narrow it down and move forward with that goal setting. And it's exciting. We bring our other department heads as well, so it's not just the commission. We bring our staff department heads and start working out our near-term and long-term goals, because this is going to be an exciting time. We're going to be updating our 5-year longer-term goals as well as looking near-term. So it's going to be a very good meeting. Yes, whether it's a weekday or weekends, it's going to be a good one and probably going to go a little long. All right, thank you. Now, while we're on ARPA, though, I see we got Mr. Dusendang here, and so he has an item on our agenda, or staff has an item on our agenda for tomorrow with a development agreement with West Urban Properties that is leveraging some of these ARPA dollars, or pairing ARPA dollars with private resources to move forward with a housing infill project. And so, since Mr. Dusendang is here and Frank's got the development agreement here, we're going to speak on it, report on it, and if commissioners have any questions, feel free to ask them right now.
Yeah, no, I'll just start out by saying I think what we have presented for the commission, I know it took a little bit longer than we originally wanted. We were trying to get a little bit more direction from Treasury before we went down this housing trip, and I think we got the direction that we need, at least to make us feel comfortable that that affordable and semi-affordable and different types of affordability are possible. It's not just 60% and below of AMI, and I think that was what was initially our stumbling block. What I have presented here, I think, is almost it's what we talked about. So essentially, the developer and us partnering to build twice as many units. So if you read through here, it essentially says he's going to build. We're going to provide him $3.125 million to build houses, but that's only for half the cost of the houses. So it'll generate $6.25 million worth of new housing. The one big change is we originally said that we wanted to keep the cost below $225,000. I asked him, and I think he agrees that we had to raise that to 235. And if they want to speak to that, really, even in the 5 months since we started talking about this, the cost of materials just continues to go up and up and up. And we just wanted to make sure that we're not building a substandard house. There were certain things that were important, whether they were higher efficiency windows and higher efficiency appliances and all those things. And we think that this will help us, get there, and then maybe look at other things that maybe weren't about efficiency, but were more about comfort, whether it's just sprinkling or things like that, and back off on some of those. But what we think the agreement does is gives me the flexibility to work with Dave. So it sets to 235 as like the goal, and then it allows us to work together if costs change or things need to change to get the cost down, or if we need to agree to make a additional investment because it's needed in order to make the house sellable or accommodating of folks. But I think the big thing that I wanted to point out here is I think that we for sure have the ability to go to 300% of the poverty level based on the guidelines that we've seen come from Treasury. For us in our community, for a family three, it's like in the mid $60,000 range. So it's not by any means like it's a very high income, but it's what would average out to us to be somewhere between a 110 and 120 of the AMI. So kind of the sweet spot that we were looking at when we were saying between 80 and 120 for the majority of these houses. I think we can still accommodate that. I think there's probably some additional guidance in there that I think we're going to drill down into over the next couple of weeks that says, for a community like ours that is a low income, that is a qualified low income community that has qualified census tracts, that 300% of the poverty level guideline does not exist for us, which would give us some more flexibility to work within what we feel is comfortable from an affordability standpoint to maybe be able to go up a little higher on some and lower on others. The guidance that was there was just a little confusing, but we think the 300% guideline was really set for communities that weren't low income communities. And then the very next sentence talks about low income qualified communities. We have the flexibility to provide affordable housing, and it's just left open like that. So I think we have the ability to try to determine levels of affordability within our community for people, essentially probably from all the way down to poverty level, below poverty level, to probably somewhere up around the median income that we address anyway. And I think Dave's ready to build. I think he's chomping at the bit over here.
Yeah, I mean, we're ready to break ground as soon as we're approved. We have several lots already picked out in the McLaughlin neighborhood. That's where I was instructed to focus on first. And I think out of, I want to say we did like 14 total lots. I think 7 of them, just about 50% of them had clear title ready to go. And the price fluctuation, it's not just in the materials and the labor, but as I was explaining to Frank, is in this program, unlike the first part of the program, we're going to matching dollar for dollar, but the tree clearing and all the infrastructure that has to be put in is not covered by the city. This is what we would have to pay for. So some lots could essentially cost us $20,000 just to clear it and pull a foundation that's already currently there out. Others might cost $5,000. So the price goes up just for that. That means the price of the house has to go down. Otherwise, the price of the entire project has to go up as well. So we just put a cap on it to 235. We could, design homes that are coming in at the 180. We could design homes that come into $2 million. It's up to you. We can design them all to fit the neighborhood and also the cost.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dusendang, and thank you, Manager Peterson. The commissioners have any questions? This is on the agenda tomorrow as well under new business, so you'll be able to, if you didn't get a chance to ask your questions tonight, you can ask it tomorrow. You'll be returning tomorrow, or is it just going to be you? That might be why you're here tonight, because you can't be here tomorrow night.
I can be. I'll be present tomorrow.
All right, so you'll have an opportunity to give input or ask questions tomorrow night as well. But thank you for being here tonight to give our commission extra opportunity to engage you. And moreover, thank you for your continued investment in our city.
The big reason I wanted Dave to get up here was to make sure I didn't really hear any major heartache. I think the agreements are by and large the same of what we talked about this spring. I just wanted to make sure that that was the case before I had him come in tomorrow and, and maybe get sent back to make changes. I'd rather try to make them today. But if people aren't seeing any major changes, then I'll have Dave come tomorrow.
Yeah, the only thing that we were waiting on is the actual development agreement to be finished with Ben Trier. Now that it is, we're ready to move forward. Nothing's changed since our original, in September, our original.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a
Dusendang.
question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, how you doing, Mr. Dusendang? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Totally, as we speak right now, how many houses have you currently built in the city of Muskegon?
Oh boy, a lot.
Yeah, no, I know it's been quite a few.
Well over 100.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're over 100 total, including Terrace Point Landing. Not just with our ARP stuff. That's including Terrace Point Landing and then customs as well. We've got to be approaching it, if not over.
In this next phase, how many of you anticipating building?
Well, it all depends on the pricing of each individual house. We have a max of, I'm putting in 3.125 million. The city's put in 3.125 million. So once that 6 and whatever million is gone, that's it. So we could put 20 houses up. We could put 25 houses up. It could be, I think at 250 when we originally started it, it came out to be something in the essence of 30 homes, 28 to 30 homes. But that was with the full. I think we had 5 million on there at that time, but then it's dropped down to the 3.125 now.
If we stay close to the 235, it'll be between 25 and 27 homes.
Somewhere in there, yeah, mid 20s. And then and if the program's working and we want to allocate any of the more funds back into the program, I'll continue to match it, continue to build as well.
Excellent. Yeah, fingers crossed that inflation recedes somewhat and doesn't stay so persistently high, so we can get more housing out of these dollars. But you have something to add, Mr. Peterson?
One last thing, that just in case it comes up, we did have, I think, 3 other respondents that I think are in different phases of getting prepared. You will see those coming. So the other ones like Mr. Williams and Mr. Briggs and stuff, they are still coming forward. Dave just happens to be the first one. So whether it's next month or the following month, we will see those other builders. Very similar, almost probably exact same agreements for them.
Right.
So those are coming.
Excellent. Great to know. Thank you, Mr. Dusendang. We'll see you here again tomorrow night.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Before we go to public comment and adjournment, Director Evans, this is a question I've been asked that several people had asked about, and I just want you to share for the record for everybody. And I asked you earlier, so I'm not putting you on the spot. This is with regard to maintenance of the new pathway that we're going to be building at the beach. There was some concern about, how are we going to be maintaining that? How are we going to be keeping it clear of sand? Particularly how challenging it's been with the narrow sidewalk. So if you could just briefly elaborate how we plan on handling this differently going forward with the new pathway.
Sure. We're still exploring options, and we'll have to go back and revisit the 16-foot to make sure that doesn't change anything. But my intention is to use the equipment that we use to groom the beach daily. We have a tractor that pulls a sand rake across the beach every day, to equip that with a front broom and just have a daily sweep of the path in both directions be part of their everyday maintenance operations while they're raking the beach.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Very good.
And okay, public comment. Final public comment for the night. Yes, Ms. Balta.
Hi, my name's Kelly Balta. My 11-year-old's going to be speaking after me, so I don't feel comfortable giving our address, but I can email it if necessary. I'm here to talk about the new mural, which unfortunately my home looks over. I have a few issues with it. My main issue is the woman being attacked with an axe. Now, 1.9 million women every year are physically assaulted in this country. 1 out of 4 women will be the victim of domestic violence. 1 out of 3 women will be physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, verbally assaulted. I take issue with this because we're glorifying violence against a woman. It hurts me. 5 years ago, my ex-husband came and kicked my door in. It took me years to feel safe in my home again. Now, every morning when I go to brush my teeth, I see a woman getting attacked by an axe. Every night when I wash my dishes, I see a woman getting attacked by an axe. We should not be glorifying violence against women. Okay, I know some people in this room have said, oh, but it's historically accurate. Yeah, so are chalk markings on the street. So are kids ducking in parks when the guns start. Why are we having a woman being attacked on a public building? It's not appropriate for the Elsie Walker Arena. It's not appropriate for my 11-year-old child to have to see. We should not be depicting women being attacked on our city buildings. It's disgusting. It's inappropriate. And I don't know who approved it, but they should be ashamed. Thank you. My daughter prepared something. Also, one more thing. I know parking is a problem. When I moved here 10 years ago, we had trolleys. What happened to them? I take a trolley to the beach. Lots of city residents would. If parking's such an issue, let's bring back a shuttle, a trolley, something. If we're not doing parking for out-of-towners, we're not doing parking for the deck, we're doing it for our residents, then let's have a trolley, right? How often are the parking lots down here open on the weekend days? I live down here, they're always open. Let's have shuttles. They'll solve parking, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belta.
I also have something to say about the mural.
May we have your name, please?
Oh, Mina. My last name's Altai. I have to wake up every morning to see a painting of a Native American getting axed. I am not allowed to see TV shows or movies that are that violent. So why should I have to see that every day? How is a lady getting axed about Muskegon? Why are we advertising that? Is that what Muskegon is about? If it is, that's disgusting.
Thank you, Mina. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on public comment? Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Name and address, please, and 3 minutes.
Maria, 644 Jackson. I actually had, sorry, my phone locked. A couple questions for Mr. Dusendang. Did I pronounce your name correctly? And I guess the city. So, these houses that Mr. Dusendang.
Just to clarify, remarks need to be directed to the chair, not anyone in the.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
All right. So for the city, my questions are, I have 2. For these houses that are to be built, are all of them pretty much rentals? And then my second question, are these new homes in anticipation of the new form-based zoning that's being proposed, or are they going to be built under the current residential zoning?
They'll all be for sale.
Okay. Do I stay up here or do I?
You're welcome to stay up there. All the answers.
Yep, everything will be for sale. None of these are for rentals. So this one's very specific. Was meant to be a home ownership program, and they'll be built based on whatever zoning is in effect when when they're built. So if they're built in a place where R1, they'll meet R1, R2, R3, or if they're being built in a form-based code, then they'll have that flexibility to be built based on form-based code. As of right now, where they're being proposed, well, they're all over the place, but I know there's 7 of them in McLaughlin. I don't think any portion of McLaughlin has been rezoned to a form-based code yet. So there will be R1, 2, or 3, whatever is appropriate and whatever is existing in that, at those particular sites, which could be different.
Okay, so and also to respond to that answer, thank you for your answer. How long are they able to sit on these properties? So, for example, if a person purchases a home in one of these areas, am I able to sit on this property until the zoning that I want to go through is approved, or do they have a certain amount of time to build these single-family homes on these properties?
Oh yeah, I think we're really asking the builders to build like as many of these homes as possible in a year. The goal isn't to slow down, to slow it down. The goal is, we know we have a housing crisis, right, and a housing need. I would anticipate, you heard Dave, we pretty much said, I'm ready to go. I don't think any of them are worth waiting for the zoning to change. Whether even if it's only 6 months from now, they'll want to get started on the homes right.
Okay, because I was talking to some of the other residents within the Nelson area, and those individuals were saying how some of these properties, I'm not sure if it was his properties or whomever properties, that they built several properties, anywhere from like 8 to 14 of these properties in a really short period of time. So like way less than like 3 or 4 months, these properties went up and went into effect. So if this is the case, is it reasonable to ask that, or I guess infer that these properties will be, if this is put in effect on tomorrow or whatever, that these properties will be put up within 6 months?
Not within 6 months, because
Okay.
it'll take that long. Remember, it's winter time.
Okay.
So the idea of getting the house started is going to be slower than normal.
Okay.
Digging the hole and putting the foundation in the winter is not, it's not optimal to do. If I know Dave, I know he likes to put down a few foundations and get started building those, and then put his foundation through to put in a couple more and start building those. So it's a process to where maybe they wouldn't be able to start all of them on day one, but there'll be like kind of a rollout where there's 3 started, and then a few weeks later there's 3 more, and a few weeks later there's 3 more, and so they're not all coming available at the same time. It's a market issue, but they're all in different levels of construction. But most of them will take 6 to 8 months at least to build anyway. So if some of them get started on day one, but we're doing say 25 of them, the 24th, 5th house might not get started for 6 months, just because of the capacity of the builder.
Okay, and then also to ask a follow-up question to what you're saying. So just so I'm understanding correctly, so because it's winter right now and the ground is frozen, they wouldn't even be able to start this project probably until like April, May-ish, maybe?
No. I think they can start on them, but I just think that it's not the same as trying to build 7, dig 7 foundations in the summer versus trying to dig 7 foundations in the winter. It'll be slower. It'll be a little bit slower getting started on them, yes.
Okay, and then I had read an article that referenced some properties that he was interested in developing, and in these properties, I guess there won't be any basements or anything like that. So when you refer to foundation, I guess I'm not into construction. I don't really understand it. So really, can you clarify that for me, please? And because you're basing this on foundations and how you're going to stagger this out, so on and so forth. So I'm trying to understand and have that correlate.
Yeah, well, I think we have like a number of different options, and Dave can probably speak specifically, but I know he builds them with a full basement. He builds them on a slab. There are daylight lower levels, like almost like a split level. So there's a lot of different options, and I don't think we've settled on any one option for all of them or any one option for any one of them. So there will be probably a mixture of what you're asking for. So some will be on slabs, some will be on full basements, some will be on a daylight basement, but there should be a mixture of them.
Okay, so with these projects, you said that some can start almost immediately, but then they're going to be staggered out, and then for the project, it could take 6 to 8 months for completion. So for this whole entire project, we could be looking at a year for everything to be said and done?
More than a year or more.
Okay. All right, and in that process, if something changes as far as zoning, then they can change their ideas from single family to whatever this particular zoning allows?
Potentially, but we're building single family homes. So the idea that they might build a fourplex is probably not going to be able to happen here, because we're talking about building single family homes. The idea that they could build a townhouse could happen, but not multifamily. Yeah.
It's
Okay,
dictated
and
by the development agreement. So if any change were to be made, it had to come back to the commission, and so the public would be aware that any changes being had to the development agreement. So it's not like the developer would unilaterally make those changes because there is a contract in place with the developer.
okay, so does the contract supersede? So there's a
This is going to be your
contract.
final question. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to let you know this is going to be your final
Okay.
question. Any follow up, you can speak with our city manager or speak with the developer, Mr. Dujardin, after this meeting or by email.
So I guess my question is, so whatever this agreement is, I'm sorry, what did you refer to it as?
Development
agreement. Whatever the original development agreement is, whatever the zone is at that time, they're grandfathered into that. And if something is to be
It's
changed,
unrelated. So single family is stipulated in the development agreement wherever it's being built, whether it's in a neighborhood like Nelson that has form-based code, or if it's McLaughlin where it's R1 and R2 and R3.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily tied to the zoning. It's going to be built within the confines of the zoning and wherever it happens to be built, and it sounds like some are being built in both.
and this is available online for the public?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Thank you for attending tonight. Yes. What? Yes. Please come to the podium, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to give your remarks.
Well, I just want to say that I'm not happy with the mural either.
Can I have your name and address, please?
Oh, you guys got to know by now. 592 West Muskegon. My first name is Morning. My last name is Bear. That mural, I would never want my daughter or my grandchildren to see. I would never want someone to come visit me and see that mural. I do not believe the intent was to be hurtful. I think it's accurate, but I think the effect that it's having on many people is negative. And I keep hearing from people that are not Indigenous that it doesn't bother them. Well, it bothers me. It bothers other Indigenous women in this community that are willing to come to a meeting that's private and talk about it. They're not willing to be public. It's too hurtful. It's too tearful. It's too hard. It's hard for me. But real quick, I'm going to give one quick lesson. I gave it to Willie the other night. I'm going to give it to all of you. In the state of Michigan, there were never reservations. Indigenous people had to purchase land, which is why there's Manistee, Gun Lake, different casinos. That was on purchased land that is not reservation land. So there are state bans, there's federal bans. So you have the bans in Michigan, and then the numbers from Bureau of Indian Affairs right now, as of last week, there are 160 tribes that live in the state of Michigan. They might be from California, they might be from Montana, they could be from anywhere, they could be Canada. So that mural represents all of us, and it hurts all of us. And just because one person from Little River might have said it's okay, doesn't make it okay. I spoke with several people at the Little River on tribunal. It never went to tribunal council. It was never voted on and never discussed with tribunal council. And this is the same group that dug up the old Indian cemetery. I'm asking you, please, to remove the mural until you can decide the best avenue to take, because it hurts. It hurts the women of this community. It's not a mark against the artist. It's not a mark against the city. It's a mark of love to take it down. It's a mark of love to respect us. That's all I'm asking for. And then later, let's see what to do about it. Let's get the artist in. Let's fix it. But take it down. No one should have to look at that in my culture. And what Mina and Kelly said just broke my heart. No woman should have to look out their window and feel like that. Ever. Let's love each other like we say we do. Let's do it. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bear. And I'm sorry that you or anyone else feels pained by that public art on our arena. So there will be conversations that need to be had with regard to that piece. And you're absolutely right that the artist needs to be consult as well. I do not think for a minute that there was any intention for it to be a hacking of the woman. I understand how it's perceived. There's no argument on how you perceive that, given the proximity of the native woman to the tree that is being chopped down. So I'm sorry that you are hurt and pained by that. Conversations will need to be had.
I was in Florida on vacation, and my phone was already up from people sending me pictures and telling me that was me. And that's what people think. They think it was intentional. I do not. I think it was a mistake. I really do. I don't believe it was intentional. But if the trees were chopped down on my property, I am indigenous, and it hurts.
Mm.
Does that make sense? So people perceived it as a personal threat against me. And I'm saying publicly, I don't believe that. I believe it was unintentional, but the hurt is still there.
Nonetheless, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Buddy, you had some additional public comment for us before we adjourn? Okay.
Thank you. Art Paletti, Thompson Avenue again. That does have to go. It is extremely offensive for all of us. Hockey players are tough, but they can chop a mighty oak. Not that kind of picture there. I have a couple things. We can't get a bus to Muskegon. There's no Greyhound service to Muskegon. How can we fix that? My son doesn't drive. I can't get him to Muskegon unless somebody drives him. We don't have a bus system. I would really like our group here to do something about that. We can't leave Muskegon. I got a buddy from the UN. He rode his bike down to Holland to get on the train. I think the other thing I just want to say, Leo, I think you guys do a good job with the front, our beaches. And I wanted to say another thing about there's no signage that says we have a boat launch behind Fricano's. That's a very nice asset, and I think we should have a sign. We have a sign for parking behind Fricano's, but there's nobody that knows how to get to the beach or to that. If you're not from the area and you don't remember that it's hidden back there, I think that's an important thing. So we got the mural, we got the trail expansion, tree. That's all I can remember. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paletti. Any other before we wrap up? Yes, Mr. Weatherby.
I'm Weatherby, 1747 Edgewater. I'm not here to jump on anyone or be critical. I just want to say I appreciate everyone listening tonight. The commissioners taking time to listen to everyone's opinion. And I did, sitting back there, I did have a little food for thought. I was thinking about things as it was discussed. Now, this is a little off the wall, so no laughing. But since, there's volleyball tournaments just north of the deck every summer. I think they have like 4 times a summer, and there's a lot of people using those courts. They set up their tents between the parking and the sidewalk, and then they use all that area in front for volleyball. And I don't know, since I don't see how you're going to get more than a 10-foot walkway in front of the deck. I don't know if it makes any sense from there to Margaret, the park. Maybe that section is just 10 feet. I don't know how much room they need for all that volleyball that goes on. I just don't know if it makes sense to kind of work with them and see if I hate to put a 20 or 16-foot walkway if it's not needed up there. There's not that much traffic, and to push these people out that I don't play volleyball, but it's a big thing for them. So that's all. And I want to thank Leo. I really do appreciate the fact that the walkway is extended past the deck and the barrier-free walk down to the beach. That's all great stuff. So just want to make sure I'm not always negative.
Oh, never. We welcome your engagement. Thanks so much. All right, who would like to make the motion? Oh, yes, Mr. Olson.
One more thing.
Final comment.
But yeah, sorry. For down at the beach, one of the ideas that I had, I see
Sir, can you give your name and address?
Derek Olson, 2016 Estes Street. So I see the need for, like Leo had that great aerial footage of the full beach parking lot. There's full parking everywhere. Why do we not use the law of supply and demand and charge more at those peak times, and then also set up a system where we could have people ride a trolley in. So maybe instead of paying $12 to park on Saturday when I'm coming in from Grand Rapids, I'll park downtown or I'll park at one of these other places and incentivize those people to drive there. The other thing I would like to see is to extend the free parking past just the city of Muskegon to our neighbors, the city of Muskegon Heights, the city of Northern Shores, maybe even all of Muskegon County. I think that we've made lots and lots of money on it, but I don't think that, I think that the people, and we could use our placer data if we wanted to, we could fire up that cool computer program and see if all these people are driving in from farther than that, because I think a bunch of them are. And I think that those people who drive in from far can pay more, and let's get a shuttle service that for free maybe our people can ride down. But if I'm from Grand Rapids, maybe I can pay $5 instead of 12 or 15 or something like that. Just some ideas for revenue, supply and demand. If there's not enough spots, we're not charging enough for them. Boom. But we should exclude free parking for our neighbors. And it is the deck. It is the deck restaurant. You said it's not the deck. You don't want to talk about the deck. The reason there's a parking squeeze this year. Yeah, I'm just saying the reason there's a parking squeeze this last year as opposed to years prior is because of all those 350,000 people coming down from the deck. The beach. I really think we got to reevaluate transportation for people from these neighborhoods around our city so that the people of the city of Muskegon can come to this beach and not be squeezed out by out-of-towners by parking. And parking shouldn't be the thing that squeezes our residents out of going to the beach. And there's other ways to achieve it than adding 500 more parking spots or 200 more parking spots down there. Let's get some shuttle service. Let's charge more to park on holidays. And then this mural, I mean, this is the most diverse city commission in history of Muskegon, maybe in the state of Michigan in a city. I don't know that there's lots of municipalities that could claim to have the diversity that we have, and it's because the people of the city of Muskegon care, and we're respectful of other people. And if something hurts that bad, and there's enough people that say, this thing that you put up is offensive, that we ought to take it down. And if it's just that panel that comes down until we can sort it out, we should. And it should be tucked away somewhere until it can be reevaluated, because these people and these women shouldn't have to deal with this. And even though indigenous cultures have been screwed over by the United States government for years and years and years and years, doesn't mean that we need to continue that if the indigenous folks are hurting from it. Let's take the dang thing down. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal to take it down if it's offensive. I mean, it's a piece of art. We don't like it. It's put up in a public space, and art is in the eye of the beholder. But this is not that. This is in a big public space that we shouldn't have an offensive drawing. And if it was offensive, I mean, we now we can reconsider it. And so, thanks so much. And again, I appreciate all you guys. We hunkered down for hours to say our stuff, and so we care. It's because we all care. And so, all right, love you. Love City of Muskegon.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Thank you.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
Call it. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Moved. Okay, you got a motion from Commissioner
Support.
Ramsey.
Support.
Supported by aye.
Yes.
Commissioner
Everyone.
Gordon to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Dinner. Take care and be well, all.